Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. I call to order the meeting of the Manassas Park Governing Body for Tuesday, April 19th, 2022. First, we have the approval of the agenda. Per city attorney, there is no closed session.
That's correct.
Okay. Are there any changes to the agenda? Okay. Do we have a motion to approve?
Moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Moving on to number 2, please join us in a moment of silence. And Councilmember Javed, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge of allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, and I believe we have someone signed up for public comment time. Is that correct? Thank you. Mr. Kendall Gardner, would you please go to the microphone, state your name and address, limit your comments to 3 minutes, and City Attorney will be timer. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kendall Gardner. I live at 114 Martin Drive. The reason for me coming up here this evening is to reiterate the issue concerning my water bill that has never been resolved by the city. I've asked it now 4 times at the City Council. Over and above that, I also brought in something to your attention concerning the fact that the police department had an issue with deleting evidence in a criminal investigation. I brought that to your attention here at the city also as well, and I was wondering what the status of that investigation is. And hopefully somebody gets back to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gardner. Moving on to 4A. 4A is a public hearing regarding change of boundary line for Precinct 1, change of location for the Office of Registrar, and change of voting location for Precinct 3 and the Central Absentee Voter Precinct, also known as the CAP. I declare the public hearing open.
Well, I guess I'm the person that's up here for this since I drafted the ordinance. This is part of the process that the registrar explained to you a few weeks back when she came up and said that because we're moving to a new city hall, there's a process that's required under state law. We also brought in some property a couple of years ago over on the east side that we have to incorporate as well. So we're doing 2 things with this. One, we're changing the boundary of Precinct 1 to show the portions of what was General's Ridge Golf Course is now Blooms Park. That's going to be part of Precinct 1. And then we're also changing the address of City Hall from 1 Park Center Court to 100 Park Central Plaza. And that's really all that's happening. Now, I wanted to show you on our new city website, we actually have the ability to show you the new precinct. I just don't know how to get this up there. Get rid of that. All right, so this red here is the new area. Oops, the new area. You can see it. This is Precinct 1. Let's see, I believe we can go over here and just give you a legend. Yeah, so Precinct 1 is the red. The blue is on the west side is Precinct 2. Precinct 3 is this green area here. So the definitions of Precincts 1 and 3 don't have to be changed because Precinct 1 just basically says everything east of Route 28 that's not in, I'm sorry, Precinct, no, I put it up here, make sure I'm talking about the right ones here. Okay, so
2.
Precinct 1 is the red. Precinct 3 is everything east of Route 28 that's not part of Precinct 1. And Precinct 2 is just everything west of Prince William, or Route 28. So.
Your
that's
time's up.
all I have.
Very straightforward.
Yeah.
Any comments or questions?
No, I can speak for my time on the electoral board. This is quite common. I think this is what, the third or fourth time we've had to do this?
I will just point out that the address of the registrar, although this is not part of the ordinance, the address of the registrar will also change, as will the CAP address. Precinct 3 is going to be the new city hall, but the way the code is written, the CAP is just in the city hall, so we didn't have to change that. But those are also new. And then this is all part of the process that actually won't end until July 11th. So you'll note that if this is approved, it won't take effect until July 11th. The reason for that is that we're also right now in an open comment or public comment period. Once we close the public comment period, we have 30 days where people could still send information into us. July 11th is the magical day where all that stuff has occurred.
When will we be voting on this, Dean?
I would recommend next week.
Okay.
You don't have to, but we have.
Or the next regularly scheduled meeting?
Exactly.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, is anyone signed up to make public comment on this?
I don't see anyone signed up.
Okay, is there anyone who has not signed up but who is still like to make public comment? Seeing no one and hearing no one, do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you, Dean.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to no information, no presentations, consent agenda. Consent agenda consists of approval of the governing body minutes of March 29th and April 5th, 2022, the approval of Ms. Anne Marie Stewart's reappointment to the Manassas Park Library Board for a 4-year term ending March 30th, 2026, and approval of a proclamation acknowledging and congratulating the Prince William County Arts Council on its 30th anniversary. Do we have a motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. There is no unfinished business. Moving on to new business. Fire Department radio communication upgrade. Welcome, Chief.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the governing body. Tonight I have the Fire Department's radio communication upgrade. This was identified in the FY22 CIP. So we have a need to improve our radio communication equipment, which is vital to our overall success, improve during emergency services and calls for service. Currently, we're short some portable radios in operations. Along with adding these radios to our apparatus, we will be able to keep new portables for our command staff. So our current portables are much larger. Colonel Lugo actually has a smaller portable with him right tonight. That's what we're trying to go to for our command staff. So by doing that, we'll take the 4 current portables we bought back in 2015, move them to our ladder truck. So we actually have ladders, so we actually have radios there. And that way, when this trucks, we're not training, they actually have the radios to train with as well. So that would be the purpose of this purchase tonight. Like I said, it was identified in the FY22 CIP. One correction, the budgeted amount says $26,650. That should actually be $24,600.
Oh, that's good.
The $26,650 is for FY23, which we'll talk about later tonight.
Could you please repeat the correct number again, Chief?
The correct number should be $24,600. So
24,600 what?
600.
600 even. Okay, thank you.
So those are my fault for translating those numbers around.
Okay.
The amount requested would be for $24,562.16, and of course the budget line item was identified in last year's CIP. The staff recommendation is that the governing body authorize the city manager to sign an agreement with Wireless Communications to purchase the Motorola portable radios for the fire department, with all documents being subject to review by the city attorney. And the quote for the radios we're on was also included.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments? Questions or comments? Okay, Very straightforward. Okay, staff recommendation is that the governing body approve and authorize the city manager to sign all contractual documents for the purchase of portable radios for the fire and rescue department from Motorola Solutions as presented and subject to final review by city attorney.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you, Chief. Okay. Moving on to city manager's report.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the governing body. Before we go into the CIP presentation, just wanted to answer one question per request of the mayor that I addressed tonight on the salary adjustments. So the question was, what are the minimum and maximum? So the minimum we did, even if people were at kind of already their market comparison, we wanted to at least do some kind of raise for everyone since we're not doing a COLA. So the minimum we did was a $2,080 raise, which is equivalent to about a $1 raise in hourly wage. So that was kind of the minimum we did for employees, and the maximum we capped at $20,000 just to make this budget sustainable. So there was about 18 employees who didn't get to full 75%, mainly at the higher levels, so the management team, department director level, but a few other employees below as well who didn't get to the full 75% because of that $20,000 gap. That gap is about $105,000. If you want to do the full 75% gap closure this fiscal year, we'd have to spend an additional $105,000 between the general fund, but mainly general fund because most of them are, again, management and department director level and deputy director level as well. But again, I wanted to make this budget sustainable, and that's why I put that cap of $20,000. So that's about 18 employees, about $105,000 gap. In terms of years of service, so this is what we did. We looked at years of service. Yes.
So you said that the low number was 2,080. That is the minimum that anyone will receive.
Correct.
And the maximum number is 20,000. Was there any consideration to raising the raising the floor up?
It's your discretion, but again, I'd have to relook at the whole budget model and make sure that we can sustain whatever we do. So this was done, again, most of the people who got that floor, they were already at their market value, or sometimes even higher. So this was just to, again, to give everyone some kind of raise. We felt that was an appropriate adjustment. So that everyone got
Because
to
depending
2,000.
upon the number of years of service, that might seem small to them.
Yeah, again, this captures years of service in terms of market comparisons. So when the department directors sat down with HR, they looked at other jurisdictions. They looked at kind of what people, based off experience level, how many years they've been servicing, what their comparable is. So our market comparables took into consideration years of service. But of course, if there's something extra that you all want to do above market comparison just for rewarding years of service, that's also an option. It's just not in this budget. And we'd have to recrunch all the numbers if you wanted.
So what was looked at for market comparison?
Years of service, experience, all of it.
Okay, so for the surrounding localities? Okay.
Absolutely. So if this employee with that many years of service would work in that other jurisdiction, what would their salary be? That was what we looked at.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
So in the exact ranges of years of service, I'll get that to you tomorrow. HR will look up the ranges, but of course we
Okay.
have employees who are brand new, who started this fiscal year, and then employees who've been here for a very, very, very long time, so.
Yes,
So I'll
yes.
give you some more ranges tomorrow. when I get
Yeah,
that.
okay, thank you.
And then we're consolidating all of our budget questions. So far, we received a few, and we'll consolidate, and we'll provide written responses as well to provide.
And you need those by the end of the month, right?
Yeah, if you could, because you really have to kind of know where you're going with the budget, at least from advertising by May 10th. So that gives me time to come back by that date with all the answers to your questions.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so pending any further questions, we'll start the CIP presentation. Is that fine? Okay.
Okay.
So tonight, we have the full team assembled. We do have, Chris is a little sick, so he's at home dialed in. So when we get to his sections, we'll turn it over to him as well. But we're going to go over the entire CIP. Please let us know if you want us to slow down, speed it up, whatever you guys want us to do, we will do. I will start tonight with the overview, macro level, what's happening with the capital budget. I started touching on this 2 weeks ago. and I'll go over it again and just with a little bit more detail as well.
I would say go slow enough that the folks at home watching and those who rerun the video will be able to follow easily. And for some reason, your microphone does not pick up and spread throughout the room. It picks up fine for the video when you watch it later, but it doesn't pick up right now for us.
Okay.
So if you could speak just a little bit
Okay,
louder.
sure.
Yeah,
Let's do
thank
that.
you.
So
Thank you.
I'll start with the overview macro level of the CIP, and then I'll turn it over to the departments to provide a project-by-project breakdown. That first section, administration, IT, general services, that's the most complex. We'll bounce around between multiple team members during that section, but everything else is pretty self-explanatory. And we do have Mr. Eric Neff here from the schools as well to cover that section. You can see with the community development, general fund, and ARPA, they're not the only ones that will talk about ARPA, but because they have so many different funds, I call it out there. But in the administration, IT, general services, we will have some ARPA slides, as we will for the fire and parks and rec section. So when I get to that slide, you'll see it'll say ARPA up top. I want to include everything we're doing from a capital perspective for all funds, and that's why we inserted those ARPA slides as well, because again, that's still discretionary. Those haven't been fully approved yet by you all until you vote on the CIP. So that's another chance for you all to amend the ARPA budget as you choose. Okay, so the CIP 5-year model, again, in the spreadsheet, we have a 10-year model, so you can see what that looks like, but per state law, what you actually vote on is and the Planning Commission recommends, is a 5-year CIP model. And I started going over this last time, but you can see we're close to spending around $58 million over 5 years. About 13% of that is ARPA money. So even though we got a lot of ARPA money in macro, it's still a small percentage of our total CIP and what we do. And you can see the biggest driver for our CIP spending on the general fund side is the transportation, which is kind of its own enterprise fund because it's funded by specific revenues dedicated to it from VDOT, MBTA, as the two primary sources. But you'll see this year we added a lot of grants that we're applying to as assumptions that we're going to get for to fund some of these projects. And if we don't get those grants, then the projects don't move forward. Does that make sense? So when you look at the revenue side, you'll see that for transportation. You see my note there that there's an inflation in the administration and general services section because of the new community development facility purchase, along with a proffer contribution of about $3 million, and then the start of the city hall lease payments as well. And I'll go over that here, kind of point by point, kind of some of the big spending items. You'll see fire department goes up in '24, but almost that increase from their standard is based off of ARPA spending. So a lot of ARPA equipment that Chief will go over tonight, so be on the lookout for that. For the Community Development Department, why their number seems so high between 23 and 25 is the smart meters project that we want to get implemented. That's technically a water project fund, but it's being funded by ARPA. But that's why that, for those years, Community Development looks very high. For Parks and Rec in FY25, why that number looks so high is because of the Signal Hill Water Park bathhouse complete demolition renovation. It's a big project. That year, the year after that in 26, you see that $1 million, $1,083,000. That includes the Blooms Park repaving of the trails. Again, we're going to try to get a grant for that just like we did try to get for Signal Hill trails, but that one really, because that's a big undertaking. So our preference is try to get a grant to enhance the trails over there and push that back a few years. And then again, like I said before, that $9.1 million is a big number, but it includes $3 million proffer contribution, $2.5 million for the community development facility for the general fund portion, and then the city hall lease payments as well. The other thing it includes, and should be a shifting, and we'll fix this, I think, in the amendment of the budget, but I missed it, but there's funding in FY23 as well for the community development building that also is invested to help the schools out with renovations for if we move their transportation and facility maintenance people over to that new public works building. We want to do some retrofitting of those spaces for educational purposes, but we're not going to do that in 23. So some of that money should be shifted from 23 back to 25 because we're looking at executing all these projects sometime in FY24 if feasible for the new community development department building that would house community development, public works as one department, general services, and then some of the schools functions that we talked about earlier. So any questions on the macro overview of the city CIP?
So, Laszlo,
Yeah.
Blooms Park, So parks should be paved or repaved, what, every 5 or 6 years? What's the time span for that? Do you know offhand? Or is it as needed?
I would say it's probably as needed. I think that's probably the ideal, what you just referenced there, but it's not something our financial capacity allows us to do. That's why it's just a walking trail right now, and we put that advisory there. We don't recommend anyone try to ride a bike back there or do anything like that back there, because it's not
Even,
stable.
right.
You know, there's a lot of holes there as well. So we eventually want to get that addressed, but it's a big project that we can't afford right now. But we're going to try to aggressively pursue some grants to get that done.
Okay, just want to keep it in mind.
But we have it here in the budget, so worst case, we can get it funded in '26. But we really want to limit the impact to our residents of that and get a grant from it. Seems like an ideal project, especially if we can tie it into bike trails across the bridge as well. That's what I think would open up a joint application with Prince William County, City of Manassas to connect, bike access. It would be through Blooms Park, so we would want to take advantage of that and get a good trail network to allow for both bikes and pedestrians as well.
Okay, thanks.
But that's there as a placeholder again. That's our target to try to do something for Blooms Park back then when we could really afford it. So overall, when you saw on this slide, it says 57.8, but this one includes schools as well, and that's why it goes up to 60.9 million spending across 5 years. You can see the biggest item, close to 40% of our general fund CIP spending is for transportation. And then you can see facilities and grounds is the next. That's again inflated by that proffer contribution, the public works building, and then the $4.7 million city hall lease payments, and then some of the ARPA money that's in there to help out with the public works building renovations, schools, facility renovations as well. They're all included in that $14.8 million. So in reality, it's more like a $9 million steady state across 5 years spending for facilities and grounds if we didn't include these one-time items. And the proffer contribution, that's just giving money back to ourselves. It's just we're getting proffer money in that year, and we're tucking it away to the proffer fund, which that could be utilized for future NBTA matches that we have to do. So it's not really spending that year. You can see how much is going for police and fire for public safety and for schools. And then lastly, for some more overhead for our full fleet program, and then for administrative technology overhead, the biggest driver for admin technology overhead is going to be our new ERP that we're going to get done over the next 5 years that Chris is going to talk about. For water and sewer, this has been pretty constant the last few years, and kind of the planned total spending amount. You can see around $26 million planned over the next 5 years. 56% of that is debt. So remember at the last meeting I told you that when you look at the entire water and sewer budget, we're spending close to about 30% just on debt. So we have a lot of fixed costs in the water and sewer budget. Even beyond debt, you have your water purchase, your UOSA maintenance payments. The majority of the water and sewer fund is actual fixed payments that we don't have a lot of variable options for reducing. That's why I said the last time, if anything wants to be subsidized, it would be that overhead charge that we do back to the general fund. But everything else is really fixed. You need employees, right? We're giving them raises, so most actual spending in the water sewer is fixed. And I know there's always interest for, well, how can we reduce the water and sewer rates? Unfortunately, most of that is fixed, unless you want to defer capital maintenance. You can see how much we're spending for infrastructure maintenance, about 18% of that CIP, and then 11% for water sewer improvement. So, less than 30% is actually going for maintaining and upgrading the actual systems. The majority is already a fixed costs. You have 11% for facility charges, and then 1.1 million. That was a typo on the website. It says 1.1 thousand. It's actually 1.1 million for other categories. And again, the water and sewer fund is participating in the ERP enhancement process as well. Because most of the transactions in our financial software is actually water and sewer and trash from the monthly billing process that we do and collections for water bills. And then stormwater, CIP, the 5-year model, you can see the stormwater now is caught up to the water and sewer fund in terms of total spending in the CIP, and that's mainly going to be because of stream restoration. You can see that we introduced debt during this 5-year CIP for borrowing for stream restoration, but I'm going to talk about why that may go away here. Here's the breakdown. So nearly 80% of the CIP for stormwater is stream restoration. We're hoping to get that dollar figure down. And I'm hoping to set up a structure where instead of incurring debt, we enter into an agreement with the company and we pay them over a certain year period as annual kind of payments versus us having to issue debt itself to pay for a big project. Does that make sense?
Well, what doesn't make sense to me is that your line for vehicles, it jumps up from FY '22 to '24 and '25 and beyond. Isn't there overlap between the vehicles for stormwater and the vehicle line in the previous slide for water and sewer and slide 6?
There are some vehicles that are standalone water and sewer and some that are standalone stormwater. So
Okay.
they're not going to align perfectly. And some of this vehicle charge is our fleet program that Chris will go over, the overall that we get from enterprise. But some, especially for the water and sewer in the public works section for general fund, and the water, sewer, and stormwater we can't buy from that program. So you have these big jumps. So I think in the water and sewer fund.
Yeah, I saw it. It went to 100-something thousand.
Yeah, so 240,000, and I want to say in FY '28, there's an even larger jump as well for another specific vehicle.
So those are specific like vehicles for
Yeah,
that.
larger vehicles. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. So that's why it doesn't make sense. If it was just a fixed lease, it should be steady, but with the community development department, even with the fire department as well, with their ambulances and fire equipment, it's not all fleet is going to be standard.
Okay, thanks.
So total CIP city spending, including all enterprise funds, transportation fund, general fund, not including debt payments. We take out the enterprise debt payments because we don't count it for the general fund. So for this purpose, it's just see what we're actually spending on capital initiatives and removing the proffer fund payment to ourselves. We're actually spending dollars leaving our bank will be around $88 million across the 5-year period. 7.6% of that's just close to 10% is ARPA funded over the next 5 years. And you can see that 70% of the CIP is stormwater spending, transportation spending, and water and sewer spending. So those are the biggest drivers of CIP spending, along with, you'll see kind of the facilities from the general fund as well. You can see this breakdown, no change, and then 17.6 million, which combine 3 different line items in a previous slide: the facilities, the fleet program, and then the administrative technology, all into one line item, plus our election project as well. Any questions on the total numbers, macro level view of the CIP? Okay. We will now get into the capital projects, and I'm going to turn it over to Chris here to get it kicked off with software. So Chris, just let me know when you want me to change slides.
Sure, thank you. And quick sound check for everybody. Can hear me okay?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, great. So I'll just get right into it. So what you have in front of you for the next 4 years, basically all of the remaining software programs that we have in place are ones that are remaining now that we have invested on our IT master plan, utilizing CARES and ARPA funds over the last few years. These are the remaining point solutions that could or could not even be implemented through our ERP, but we're right now planning to have these in place. But if the ERP were to actually address some of these kind of point solution needs, we would absorb that into the actual ERP project. So this is subject to change as well, but the need is still there. So first on the list there is agenda creation and meeting management. This is a tool for essentially supporting our governing body, our directors using a collaborative tool to both create and process and approve agendas, going from the initial user all the way through to where Keith Laszlo and Kelly and team and Lena kind of process and put the agenda out online, and then an actual meeting management tool is kind of Lena's ability to live document and earmark kind of the flow of the meeting in the meeting that is happening, put timestamps on it, so then you can be able to post all of that information online almost immediately as well. So her clerk functions, kind of the processing there is condensed and made way more efficient than her current capability. For mass outbound communications, it's just a centralized tool. So think of it like our Everbridge functionality. This is one that combines all different types of kind of community outreach tools that we can have at our disposal. centralizes them into one common tool. So when you put a release out, it actually hits every single program that you have in place. So it's the ability to get kind of emergency communications as well as just general notifications out to the public in a pretty centralized, easy manner for our communications team. Citizen request management. So right now, we're SmartGov and Asset Essentials technologies. They address more of those kind of code enforcement, community maintenance, and work order kind of public like works request type functionalities. But we still don't have is like that FOIA case management tool, something that if somebody were to submit a request to the city, we have ability to actually adjudicate it online and provide that request feedback, as well as general requests to the city as well, kind of like a 311 type system. And then last on the list here is the smart water meter infrastructure. So I'll leave the broader smart reader kind of brief to Calvin later on in the Public Works, but there is a digital component to all of that kind of hardware technology. So this is the tool behind it that we'll be utilizing to do instant data analysis, to convert all of the readings instantaneously into kind of like a customer service view that anybody that has an account in the city can read at any time, and you're up to date, up to the minute status, as well as the billing functionality as well. Next slide. So for applicant tracking and onboarding, this one is one of the ones that in theory could be utilized in the new ERP, but it depends on the kind of the HRIS solution, so that's Human Resources and Information System component of the ERP. Common kind of best practice is that those systems have pretty good internal processing for employee management, but they don't have a great external facing tool. So this would allow us to attach that to our ERP system and provide a much easier workflow for potential new applicants to the city, being able to track all of them, come in, process all of their documents coming into the city so we can onboard employees in a more kind of cohesive manner, and just have a little bit more standardized flow. And, you know, the volume of normal applicants that we get, you know, is obviously always increased when we have to address the concerns of our part-time and seasonal employees at Parks and Recreation. So this would be for the entire city, including those types of applicants as well. Parks and Recreation software enhancements, that is for their Civic Rec tool. There was a need voiced a while back from Jay and team to try to do some tweaks to the system that they currently have, and this would just earmark a pot of funding for them to be able to request some of those enhancements with their particular vendor. Next is the electronic content management. So what you can think of this is like an employee intranet SharePoint type digital drive that the city staff can have on hand, and basically convert our kind of server supported share file network into a more cloud supported SharePoint type network that we can also build internal process flows within that actual tool. So not only will it house all of our documents, all of just what our saved files are, but you can also create internal workflows. Like if I'm going to submit from one office a request for an expenditure or something to the next office to finance, you know, I can submit that all digitally, and it'll document the entire workflow and actually save that kind of approved file in the tool itself. And it's part of a much broader initiative for a lot of our administrative functionality, which is continually try to go digital, go green, reduce the amount of paper workflows, and just kind of staff time spent tracking down paper items as well. Budget software, this is another one that intuitively you would think would be included in the ERP, but based off of my experience and understanding of what ERPs have in terms of their specific budget functionality, they tend to be pretty limited. And so if we deem that the budget functionality in the ERP winner, and that's like the one item that we're not satisfied with, we would seek to have a budget software solution placed on top of the ERP, similar to how the applicant tracking and onboarding would address that other point solution as well.
I have a question. I have a question. So, Chris, are these extra components that we have to buy with the ERP system? There's like a baseline with the ERP, and then for each one of these components, we pay this extra money?
It would not be included in the price of the ERP, so they would kind of cancel each other out because you wouldn't have to pay for that. ERPs tend to be very modular in their pricing,
Yeah.
So for any module that you're not going to pay for, you would supplement that with an external vendor that you could provide that functionality.
Right, I get that. So, but my question is, there's like a baseline that we're paying for the ERP, and then for each of these different components or capabilities, they charge us a little bit extra.
I'm sorry, are you asking if they charge extra
Well, they charge.
for...
So,
I guess I'm just not understanding the question.
So back in the day when I used to work for association management companies and we would have to go look at software like this, which wasn't anywhere near as complicated as this, there was always a baseline. And then for anything beyond the baseline, there was an extra charge per extra capability. So is that pretty much what we're seeing here? There's a baseline and then there's these extra capabilities?
No, these are just identified software solutions that some ERPs, especially in the local government industry, there are ones that not necessarily have the best functionality out there. Now, they could have improved over time, and we're going to get our RFP results back here pretty soon, within the next month or so, to kind of judge them on their merits. This is just more forecasting if they aren't. We don't plan on moving forward with implementing the full scope of their ERP services. We would just pick and choose the ones that address the most amount of functionality that we have, but it's not like a threshold type thing. So if you just, you get a certain
So
amount
that gives
of
us the
service and you tack
flexibility.
on more and more and more. So these are just kind of complementary to the overall ERP.
So it gives
and we
us-
would fluctuate the pricing accordingly.
So it gives us the flexibility. What you're asking, what we're looking at is then the flexibility. If let's say that whatever we choose for ERP has a weak budget software system, then you go out and find the best one, or the one that's best, that's best, that's
We're
capable.
looking for and we put that in the RFP as well. So
Okay.
we should definitely want to go with as much, I would say, the Venn diagram of getting the most amount of need in the single solution as much as possible, but also understanding that those kind of one-stop shop type approaches don't necessarily offer the great, functionality across the board. So some modules are better than others. So this does give us that flexibility to pick and choose those kind of point solutions, that software as a suite kind of best-of-breed approach as well.
Okay, that's what we needed to know. Thank you.
For the most part, you'll
Nope,
get
thank you.
a menu of options for modules.
Yeah.
But sometimes there's fixed, like one module may have multiple components, and there may be one component that will come with the system that we're just not going to use because it's not good, but it's already part of their package.
Right.
So unfortunately, you can't remove it. That's how at least it's structured in Keystone, but hopefully for the most part, it's going to be a menu of options with which we can eliminate modules that we don't like and then use that money to help pay for this stuff.
Okay, thank you.
And a lot of that is in the contract and negotiations part of it, and we plan on definitely trying to arbitrate on the best interest of the city and what we do or do not need. That's definitely a part of it. Last component here, the manager dashboard reporting improvements. So when we actually have everything in place and we're consuming all of the data, the goal is to then provide that data in a tool that our managers across the board can all read easily and provide them their instantaneous amount of information, either on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually, you name it, kind of basis, to be able to understand and better understand what's going on in the departments without having to do this, call for information. A lot of that, it currently takes a pretty good amount of time to galvanize and get all the resources together to get those reports put together. So that would be an improvement upon our department director's ability to understand what's going on within their own data. And apologies on the bullet point number 2 there, ERP software. That should have a number tagged to it. I believe that, Laszlo, correct me if I'm wrong, there should be about $200,000. So ARPA ERP funded element goes to the midpoint of FY25 when ARPA stops. So there is a tentative 6-month period to finalize FY25 where that ERP implementation could extend beyond the ARPA funding window. And so, it's not set in stone, but it just depends on how quickly we actually implement the software. So there could be a carryover of that cost into the general fund. And next slide.
We'll now turn it over to Don.
Good evening, Mayor, governing body. As we look at the next 5 years for the hardware, we're going to see these things over and over as we replace aged hardware. So we're looking again to purchase 25 new workstation laptops per year. It's time every 5 years. We definitely do it's time for battery replacement. So this year it'll be the City Hall UPS. The one we currently have is still servable. So we're going to be moving that over to the new City Hall and replace the batteries. We've already replaced the batteries for the PD, and we'll be doing that again in FY27. And then as we go along, every 5 years, we'll be replacing some of the physical servers. We want to start moving them out and still replace them with VMs. But as we go, some servers can't be replaced with VMs at this time. For infrastructure, we're looking at by FY24, the end of life for most of the switches. A lot of them are going to be replaced that time, if not before, with what we're doing with the new City Hall. We'll be replacing then also in FY25 the CMP wireless access points due to end of life around the city. VMware, we're going to continue the upgrade in 27, and we're also going to be doing, didn't have it, 20 VMware in 2023 and 27. We'll be replacing and working on that, and we started it this year, and hopefully have it finished up by next year. This coming year, FY23, we're going to be doing the Cip trunking upgrade, which will be doing a lot of work for us. As we've seen that when City Hall went down a while back from the cable cut, we lost phones. Once this is done, we'll have a place at City Hall and one at PD. So if one goes down, the other one will continue to operate. We'll also have some of the upgrades that are required by law now for 911, which means if you call from your office, they will get that location of where the call was made. And it's cheaper, which is always a good, yeah, you'd think it wouldn't be, but yeah, it's actually a lot cheaper.
Okay, cool.
Firewall upgrades, it'll be time for those in FY25. For some of the smaller ones, we're replacing two of our main core ones this year with the multi-factor authentication that we're doing this year. So we'll replace the main ones there, and then we'll replace some of the smaller ones around the city. And then we have the new community development building IT needs in FY24. Looking at security, we're looking at adding, right now we don't have that, we're going to add cloud-based backups to city servers. And then we'll be continuing, we'll be doing the cybersecurity testing, pen testing that we do. We'll be getting the mobile device management solution, which is, I can't wait till we get. As you know, I'm an Android person, and iPhones are a pain. If someone leaves and we don't have their information that they put in there, it becomes a brick.
Yeah.
Paperweight. With this, we'll be able to, one, recover from it. We'll be able to know where they've lost it. And if they take it with them and don't return it, we can make it a brick for them. So we're going to be looking at that, and we're going to start working on our disaster recovery planning in 23, and then in 24 and 25, we'll purchase the equipment as needed for our disaster recovery plan that we have. And Cip Trunking's in there too, so I'm sorry about that. All right, Chris.
I feel like I've beaten this one to death, but any questions on ERP, where we're at?
Questions?
Not the moment.
I'm just happy that we're starting this project in FY23, split cost between worst case scenario 1.3 million over the 5 years for the actual ERP implementation, and then the supplemental support project management support over the years as well is roughly about $250,000, and we'll be submitting an RFP this early part of the summer for implementation support. Once we kind of understand which direction we're going in, that person will be brought on and contracted to support the city and our IT team, as well as our departmental admins and subject matter experts, to get a successful implementation underway as well.
All right. So for the ARP and hardware, I've already briefed this before at Red Canary. We're looking at getting this installed this next year, and it'll run as long as we keep the software and support on it. We'll be doing ARPA up until 25. Also, we're looking at extending, we're doing that this year, is a backup dispatch laptop that for off-site that we're looking into. The PD and I are looking into for them, and this will continue the support for this laptop. And this is the continued support for the VPN upgrades. It's a yearly service that we'll have to continue. And I just want to say that we were actually in a meeting today about cyber insurance. And some of these that we have up here are pretty much required for the underwriting to have to qualify for the cyber insurance. So we're going to be, and most of the other ones we already have, so we're going to be looking very well by the end of 2023 with that portion.
Okay, thank you very much, Don and Chris. So for this next section, I'll turn it over to Calvin to get us started, and then I'll end it up the discussion on the security system and then the new public works building and some of the ARPA spending as well. So,
before we go on, I have a question about the, so for the new city hall, would the technology include like the TVs, the screens, and the monitors like we do right now? With the whole sound system, because I didn't see that project on here.
Yeah, we're doing that already in FY22. We have the,
okay.
yeah, it's a combination of the, it's all part of the project that we have with the new city hall. We're going to have the monitors in
Right.
place, and then Don is also equipping us with the new, was it new Comcast system as well? Where'd Don go? Yeah, the new Comcast system so we can actually start broadcasting back again
Oh, yeah, right.
to
That's
cable,
really
and
cool.
then,
And then the
yeah.
laptops for, I guess, the council members are included in FY23?
no, we already did those in 22 for those who
Okay.
requested them, right? Everyone who requested them got them. So
Yeah.
if you change your mind and you want a laptop, please send us an email. And we'll
Oh,
go
because I was
ahead
just
and-
curious, it was just a laptop purchase.
Yeah, that's for ongoing staff purchasing.
Oh, staff
So
purchasing, I see.
continuing to replace desktops with laptops.
Laptops, okay. All right, that's it for that.
Easy Mayor Mitchell, Vice Mayor Banks, members of the council, citizens, staff, and guests. I'm Calvin Odell, the Director of Community Development. The first project we'll be presenting tonight is Rugby Storage Yard improvements. This project was actually driven by our MS4 permit and the need to take special care of certain city sites. This site is where we haul all of our, to keep all of our spoils and fill materials, repair materials for all of our operations in Public Works. As such, because we keep spoils there and aggregate materials, we have to have a pollution prevention plan in place. We've currently been using silt fence and temporary measures. This project was initially initiated to install permanent stormwater control measures at the site so that we could stop maintaining those temporary control measures. But we've had numerous problems over the years hauling out spoils because of the unpaved condition of the site, the fact that it usually looks like this, filled with mud. We have to rent large track machines if we want to haul spoils because rubber tire loaders won't accomplish the job in the mud. So this project actually puts in those permanent stormwater controls, reworks the site, paves the site so that it can be, spoils can be hauled and removed with regular rubber tire loader. Also provides adequate lighting. One of the biggest challenges, especially with water breaks, is that we're usually working late into the night, and without adequate lighting out there, we're often using the headlights of trucks to light our way. So it provides lighting, and it also solves a lot of the problem we've had with over-settlement of some of our repair areas. When we put wet material in there, the material settles more than dry material would. So this puts a roof over certain materials that we store there to keep them dry, so that we have better performance in the field. So this is pretty comprehensive reworking of the Rugby storage yard. It is split between the 3 funds because we use this site for streets, stormwater, and water sewer. But because most of the spoils that we haul especially are associated with water sewer operations, water break operations, and because most of the fill materials go back into those water main excavation pits, because of that, the bulk of this project is carried by the water sewer enterprise fund. This next slide represents all of the various repairs that are necessary at the police station. We conducted a leak test this year. We got that report a few weeks ago. We are no longer calling this a roof repair project because the leak repair exploration found that this was primarily associated with foundation walls, flashing areas, things of that nature. So we're still leaving the same figure in there. We believe this is adequate to cover the repairs that are specified in the report. So we're still looking at $150,000 in leak repairs. We're just no longer calling it roof repairs. Building paint and caulk. In general, some of the areas around the windows and around some of the vent terminations are leaking, and the building is due for an overworking with new caulk around all the windows, vent terminations, and also painting, surfaces that need surface coating for protection. The precast stone repair, there's a lot of precast stone at the PD. It was a very attractive building when it was built, but some of the precast is starting to show rust through the surface and starting to stain pretty badly. We've attempted to clean it numerous times. It does not clean up. So the project will replace a lot of the precast material around the building. The PD flooring project, there is a lot of moisture on the ground floor that's causing a lot of tile pop-up and issues like that. The flooring needs to be addressed. And the electrical equipment replacement, that was tied to the leak repair project. And one of the major leak areas there is the electrical room, unfortunately. We've lost one automatic transfer switch at the facility. We've also recently lost another disconnect switch. And that is all associated with the water that has been infiltrating. So of course, we will put this project off until the leak repairs are completed. And that we've proven that we're no longer taking water in the electrical room, but then we really need a comprehensive replacement of all the electrical equipment in that area. And then the rooftop HVAC unit replacement. These AON units are very expensive. There is a picture of one there on the right. They were originally $70,000 to $80,000 when the facility was built. At this point, we're estimating to replace the 2 AON units, the carrier unit, and the chiller unit that serves the shooting range. We're looking at around $500,000 to replace all of that equipment.
How many units is that?
There's 2 AON units like the one you see there. There's also a carrier gas unit that does the locker rooms and the workout room. And then there is a chiller with a HEPA filter that does the shooting range.
And how old are the units?
This facility was completed and occupied in 2007, so everything is 15 years old.
It's damaging.
Here's some of the pictures of the water damage in and around the electric room and the boiler room. Here's some pictures of the precast stone. And we have attempted to clean it in the past, and you can see in certain areas, hard to see from a distance, but there's actually rust coming through some of the precast materials, which means that the reinforcement steel was placed too close to the edge of the concrete, and now rust is starting to come through. Here's the issue with the flooring on the ground floor. You can see the moisture pushing up through the cracks in the vinyl tile. Fire station facilities repairs. This is ongoing, numerous projects, again, that I'll cover on the next slide. Initial cost of $55,000 in FY '23, with $629,000 over 5 years. The projects include interior painting, replacement of a very dilapidated dumpster enclosure, which originally was a repair project, but I have a feeling we can actually replace the entire enclosure for as much as it would cost to fix it. Digital LED sign installation, bay fan installations to keep the bay cooler in the summertime. Window replacement. The windows there are they're aluminum, and we've had them repaired comprehensively one time. Seemed like the repair helped a little, but didn't last very long. It's time for a comprehensive window replacement at the facility. And a kitchen remodel to accommodate growing staff and provide staff more space. And there's also a heat issue that's being generated in the pantry area because they're using 3 domestic refrigerators right in a row, and those 3 domestic refrigerators are generating a lot of heat in the small pantry area, which is causing challenges with the HVAC system. An exhaust removal system. There was a CO2 or a CO removal system. We have tried to get numerous contractors to get that system triggering automatically like it's supposed to, but they desperately need that exhaust system that exhaust removal system replaced for the safety of our firefighters and the EMS staff. Flooring replacement. There's flooring issues all over, but there's also a major water heater leak that damaged a large section of flooring in front of the water heater room. The generator is due for replacement. It is, facility like a fire department or a police department. You certainly don't want the staff to be without lights and power. It can inhibit response operations. So we'll keep an eye on this. We're hoping that it can last until '27, but if the generator starts having major issues and becoming a cost issue to repair, we'll probably move this project forward. And heat pump replacement. Again, Silver, can you correct me if I'm wrong, but is this the heat pump that serves the uniform wash area and the end of the building by the base? Yeah, this is a separate split unit, not the main HVAC system, but it actually serves several rooms on the end of the bay, on the other end of the building from where the firefighters and the EMTs sleep.
Calvin, did you say that the exhaust removal system had a safety aspect to it?
Yes.
Should it wait until FY '26 to be done?
Well, we've attempted to have it repaired. Nobody can figure out why it does not automatically activate. Essentially, if you start a fire truck or an ambulance inside of there, it shouldn't take long for that system to detect CO and kick on. It does not do that. I think you guys had any issues. Usually they're just starting them and rolling out. So fortunately, there's not many people hanging out in the bay. But yes, it certainly could become a safety hazard if firefighters and paramedics were hanging out in the bay with running vehicles. There would be no system right now that would automatically detect CO and start removing it.
Would it be advisable to move that up?
It's your discretion. We certainly could, and we can kind of flip reserve contributions, so we can tap into reserves this year to get that done this year, and then that year we would then have those savings to put back in reserves. Yeah.
I would think that should be done as soon as possible. Personally, I don't know what the rest of the governing
Yeah,
body.
I agree.
I mean-
Sooner if we can.
Put yourself in their shoes. I mean,
Yeah,
who wants to be
so-
sitting there inhaling?
Carbon monoxide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in the wintertime, you can't keep those bays, right, Chief? Keeping the bay doors open in the wintertime is not a good idea? Yeah.
It's got to be done. Yeah,
And
yeah, okay. Is everyone in agreement? Yeah. That's-
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
If that's, you say it would come from a reserve?
Yeah, we would tap into reserves this
Okay.
year, and then, but what we lose in reserve contribution this year, then in '26, we'd
Replenish it back,
yeah,
yeah.
so we just delay reserve.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Okay.
This is a general facilities project, the BAS system. The BAS system allows facilities manager to monitor HVAC and security controls remotely. BASs are very versatile, as you can see from the illustration. You can tie lighting, HVAC, security systems, lots of different things into a BAS system. But in general, it gives a facilities manager the ability to monitor all facilities from a single location, even in a remote environment, so that they can start the troubleshooting before they respond to the job. They can take a look at what's going on in the system, decide if they need to immediately dispatch a third-party contractor, or if they need to go to the facility to gather more information. But it's a very useful tool. We used to be able to access the PD HVAC system remotely, and I would sit down at Public Works, and I could usually tell what was going on with the system without leaving my desk, which saves a lot of time, and, you know, mobilizing to a building just to do the same troubleshooting you would do from where you're currently at. So it is a big time saver, and it really helps, you know, if Kenny can do these kind of things when he's on vacation or something, take a look at it real quick and, you know, let it help someone else decide who we need to call. It's looks like a lot of money, but it's a really, really, really useful tool and something that I desperately miss having access to at the PD, because it really does help streamline the process of repairs.
A quick question.
Yep.
So for which buildings would that cover?
So currently, the PD has had a PD module can be tapped with a centralized BAS system. The fire department can be tapped with a centralized BAS system. City Hall, when it's completed, will be able to tap with a centralized BAS system. And I believe Kenny has said that the community center could as well. Really depends on whether or not, or the amount of sole sourcing or the amount of proprietary programming that's gone into the control system itself. If there's not a lot of proprietary restrictions on the control system, we can tap into it with a BAS. But hopefully all of the city buildings, except for the library.
Okay. The old library or the new one?
The neighborhood library.
The old,
Okay.
well, what will be my new home very shortly.
Okay. The former car barn.
Public parking lots, this is really a two-part project. There is the resurfacing and repairs of the actual pavement itself, and then there is the lighting issue. With the parking lot resurfacing, we've tried to target around $100,000 a year in expenditures to try to keep constant year-over-year resurfacing operations going on. With the parking lot lighting upgrades, we've actually made great strides already. We still do have to address the community center. But this is, again, this is subject to change, but this is really my first attempt to try to put together approximately $100,000 and in some sort of priority. But of course, we have to reevaluate pavement condition every year, so some of these projects could slide up or down depending on the current condition of the pavement. And as you can see in the bottom, police and fire were completed in '22 with the LED upgrades in the community center. We scheduled an FY24, and Public Works, since we're looking to switch facilities, is currently scrapped from this project.
I have another question. When was the last time the ones Costello, Signal Hill, when was the last time those were touched?
Costello is the one that we're very concerned about, because that lot was done with the community center in 2010.
Okay.
There are areas around Costello Park that are older than that, but we've already seen significant longitudinal cracking and stuff in the Costello, the community center parking lot. We don't want moisture to start to infiltrate and cause alligator cracking that we can't control. That's why it's a large parking lot, heavily utilized, some on weekends, sometimes not even a place to park. So we need to be very careful not to let that deteriorate too quickly, or we'll be into a full depth reconstruction situation.
Okay.
But yeah, there are areas around Costello Park that haven't been touched in probably 20-some years.
Okay.
But,
Like over by the stone house and,
over by the Stone House and over by the modular clinic, that bus loop has probably been at least 20 years since it was resurfaced.
okay, thank you.
ARPA projects, fire, EMS, and EMS facilities. The bay door replacement has been a haunting issue at the fire department for some time. I believe you guys still keep an extra spring or two up in the loft because that's how often we have to call someone out to fix those bay doors. Probably not the wisest design. They get a lot of use, far more than your home garage, but they're pretty standard bay doors. The plan is to switch them out with these bifold models where you're not putting so much stress on the equipment. A lot of the weight's still resting on the track on the ground, so you're not depending on raised tracks and springs to carry all the weight. But this has been a real hassle for both the fire department, and I would say it's definitely probably inhibited response time, probably by seconds, because I don't think they wait. When they start scratching the top of the truck, they probably just go, and the door has to pay the price. But it's definitely an issue that we need to look into because, you know, if they have to go out the back way because a door fails, they're losing precious seconds in their response time, and that's just ridiculous. And the prices, this is a better price than I was expecting, but this will be a major improvement for the fire department. The parking lot resurfacing there, I don't think Chief liked my jokes about drainage swales, but there's large longitudinal cracks that carry water. You know, I said they were carrying water away from the site, but they're probably actually allowing water to penetrate the parking lot. The same thing with the community center. We're about to wind up with some serious alligator cracking and pavement deterioration if we don't address this issue soon.
So now, what's the new technology for these bay doors?
It's just bifold, so instead of all the weight resting on
Yeah,
raised tracks
the
and
three folds, or is it two?
your size will wind up being 3 folds per side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it open fast enough? Same
Yeah.
same as the bay doors will open fast enough?
It's kind of the new standard around
Yeah.
all the fire departments building Northern Virginia, that's what they're going to do.
Going this way? Yeah.
So they go like this instead of like that?
Going up, yeah.
They're like a closet bifold where
Okay.
most of the weight of the door rests in a track. So the track is supported on the ground, less mechanical parts. You
Yeah.
of course have the rollers in the track on the ground, but the weight is on the ground and not suspended in the ceiling with a bunch of components and parts trying to hold all the weight of the door.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Calvin. For this security system replacement upgrade, this project actually started in FY '22, since it was already approved. We had a 3-year financing plan, so the latter 2 years, FY '23 and '24, we'll be spending about $610,000. The good news, it's really only going to cost taxpayers about $150,000 because we were awarded the congressionally directed spending to cover the majority of the remaining costs for this project. So that's exciting. And again, just as a reminder, we have the new city hall, which we're going to need the card swipers. We'll need panic buttons, alerting system, security cameras for active shooters. Same thing with the community center to get some of that in there. Fire station right now doesn't even have the card swipers or security cameras. The police station needs upgrades. I'll just put it that way. There's our end of life, and of course a central tracking system at the police station as well to monitor what's happening at all of our public facilities as well. So this is just an ongoing project. Yeah.
Remind me, what are we doing for the VRE garage?
That the VRE is going to come back with, that's going to be part of their
Okay, so
budget.
this won't be included in that?
No, but we have been coordinating with the VRE, Steve and Major Reinhardt have been talking with them in terms of security camera layout as well and making sure everything.
Is that both interior and exterior, or?
I'd have to get back to you. It's something that I know Steve has been working on, but I want to say yes for both.
And you said they're covering the cost?
Well, it's part of the VRE garage project.
Okay.
So on our level, we would cover costs for our level,
Yeah,
and they would
and
cover costs
they're-
for theirs.
Well, then the exterior, there'll be the same thing?
That I'll have to check.
Okay.
I'll have to get back to you on that. And of course, we'll go, hopefully we'll get a full VRE
Right,
project
yeah.
budget shortly here to go over in detail
Okay.
with you all, along with kind of what the gap financing is, and hopefully we'll get that grant that we applied for to cover any of the gap. that we have. This project, the new city hall and new community development buildings, these were on our radars. It has been on our radar for quite a bit. We didn't have any debt capacity to address the current city hall and reaching its end of life cycle, or the community development public works building, the two oldest facilities. We addressed the city hall with the development, to have the development pay for the construction of the new city hall that's right across the street. That will be open this coming July. And we start making the annual lease purchase payments in, I want to say FY '24, at a smaller amount, and then it starts picking up in FY '25 as the development kicks off. And just some good news, the advertised kind of sale pricing for these homes are a lot more than what we had planned for. So the revenue is going to be more than enough to cover even more than what we had originally planned. So that's good news in terms of paying for the annual lease payments for City Hall. And then for the new community development building, the general fund, the water and sewer fund, and then a little bit of ARPA money as well is going towards that effort of acquiring an existing industrial building, doing all the necessary renovations to it, and then also potentially working with the schools to move some of their personnel from transportation and facility maintenance over to that building, and then renovating those facilities for educational purposes that the schools may need for that purpose. But that's what. Yes.
Have they started selling the homes?
What they're taking right now is early kind of registrants who may have signed up for it. They're actually starting to meet with them to start selling those homes. So yes, the first ones should be completed by Halloween or November timeframe. But they're already going to start sale here very shortly.
So is the school board chambers going to be the same as the city hall chambers?
Yeah, we're going to call it.
So this will be
it's a
shared
board,
space?
Board chamber that covers school board Monday nights,
Yep.
Governing body
On
Tuesday
Tuesdays.
nights, planning commission and EDA Wednesdays, and then
Okay.
the other boards.
Well, that was my next question. There'll be no conflicting scheduling?
No, the only ones that Randy has her ESS advisory board. They usually do that at their facility.
Yeah.
Parks advisory board usually happens at the community center as well. The only ones that you may run into some conflicts, maybe when you have the board of equalization, we'll have to just make sure that the nights work. We can just move around, start taking advantage more of Thursday nights. We don't do a lot of Thursday night meetings, so we can take advantage of that as well. And then the goal again for that building, once we're done with our last meetings, then the library can just keep using it for other purposes.
But we don't have like a sub boardroom like we do right now, right? So it's gonna be one big hall, like.
Yeah, you'll have an adjacent conference room that
Okay,
you can
the
utilize
conference room.
for closed session. And then when you're not using it for closed session, or the school board's not using it for closed session, or someone else isn't using it for another kind of smaller board meeting, it's also available for the library right now for additional study rooms as well. So it's connected to the library as well. And then this is the ARPA funded portion of the final kind of facility strategy that we have that we can't incur debt to address. It's just the ARPA spending portion, which hopefully goes more for kind of any renovations that we need for that building to make it work for all the different entities, and then to help out with the schools with renovations of their existing facilities to make it work for educational purposes. Any questions on facilities before I turn it over to Chris for fleet?
I got a question. So in regards to the leak on the police department building, it's why not replace the roof? How long is that a rubber roof that's on the police department headquarters?
We have the roof analysis, and I won't speak now, but
Well, it's not
apparently
a
the
roof
roof is a
problem.
good structure. It wasn't the roof itself.
It was the.
Yeah, I know you.
wall.
I know you. It was the flashing that was causing the leaks. But why not replace the entire roof if you're fixing a leak with the flashing, but you're also putting in like 4 HVAC units? That's just a lot on top of a rubber roof.
Well, yeah, but the EPDM roof was in remarkably good shape.
Mm-hmm.
That was the very first thing we did, was actually the contractor that the schools is using.
Mhm.
We had joined up with them to see if there was economies of scale.
Mhm.
We had by doing the PD roof and the school roofs at the same time. The recommendation of the school's contractor was you do not need a new roof here. There's really no signs that the membrane's starting to come unglued.
Mhm.
Everything looks to be in really good shape. You should have, another 20 years out of this roof with no problem. When they replaced the units, They probably will redo new EDPM over top of the curbs and redo the seams at the curbing. But they, unless they damage the rest of the membrane, walking around on it or dropping screws on it or something, there shouldn't be any drive to actually focus on replacing that membrane for a long time. The issues were really foundation wall down by the electric room. We poured water on that roof. I was there for that portion of the leak test. They flowed water and built up water on that lower roof above the electrical room for almost an hour. No water came in. As soon as we moved up to the foundation wall, water started infiltrating through the foundation wall. And on the upper roof, it's actually the precast stone that tops the parapet wall. I suspected a long time ago because the detail in the plans showed a continuous single piece of flashing covering the parapet wall with precast stone set on top of it, but you could clearly see that the joints in the flashing were offset, so they tried to use two pieces of flashing, and I guess the caulk deteriorated over time.
Yeah, it's caulk.
But when they did exploratory demolition, moved several pieces of the precast, took photos, that's all in their report. Yeah, there's just no protection. When water seeps in under the precast, it's going right down into the wall and leaking into the building. So the leak testing was pretty comprehensive, the report's pretty comprehensive. The membrane is still in really good shape. These repairs hopefully will fix all the issues without touching the membrane of the roof, because that's a very substantial project.
Yeah.
We have a lot of equipment to lift off. We have a lot of curbing, especially on that lower roof where the chiller unit's at. It's actually 4 separate pieces of equipment that make up the chiller system. So it's a very busy roof.
Okay.
But the recommendation was not to touch the membrane. No need.
Got it. Thanks, Calvin.
Okay, turning it back over to Chris to discuss fleet.
All right, so everyone should be familiar at least with this overview slide. It was the one that's been presented as the original kind of fleet approval, as well as the last few CIP cycles, but it's just a good way to kind of re-familiarize kind of the totality of the fleet manager program, which is not just vehicle cost, but it also takes into account the value in fuel and maintenance savings over the years, as well as the equity we get from returning our vehicles back into enterprise, and what the total savings represents versus our previous model that we had for replacing vehicles, which was less vehicles over longer time. Now we have kind of a more sustainable rotation for vehicles in the for our fleet, and this is specifically for our white fleet vehicles, not those specialty ones. Next slide.
Before we leave the slide, and this is again just with fuel prices going up, this was a apples to apples, right? So had fuel prices stayed constant with our previous program versus now, we would have had a lot more savings. But with fuel prices going up, we did this.
And also, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, this is a conservative estimate still for the vehicle equity. Obviously with the cost of fuel going up, that's cost for whether or not we did replace our vehicles or not, but also the value of our sell-back vehicles to enterprise actually went up as well. So we get, in theory, more equity. So this is a more conservative estimate. In actuality, it's probably higher as we begin to turn over the more valuable vehicles in our fleet, which are going to be our public safety ones here over the next few years. Next slide. So the city manager asked me to kind of provide a year-by-year account of the 5-year spending per department for those vehicles that we're procuring in that year. So a good way to think about it is for FY23 for PD, that $360,000 number represents the 5-year spending for the 6 vehicles that we're going to be procuring in FY23 for the police department. But this is just a way to kind of see it broken down by department over the next 5 years. Next slide. So for the upcoming FY23, the request is going to be for the police department kind of breakdown. So we actually can go into the next slide and show the actual breakdown. excuse me for the typo, it should be 6 at the top of the list there, not 5. But the 1 was added for the special victims detective requirement for having an additional vehicle. So the 6-car breakdown is, replacement of those current inventory that we have. Next slide. Just another caveat here, the recent change was for the request for a Tahoe type vehicle. These recently switched to, I believe it's the Ford Interceptor specialty service type vehicle. The one kind of thing that we've had to go with against all other local governments and state governments as well is we're all competing for the same vehicles, and Tahoes were one that were hit pretty hard, just GM as a manufacturer as a whole. So luckily, working with a national chain like Enterprise, they were able to kind of quickly identify and basically earmark 6 interceptors that also meet our same kind of operational needs, and working with our PD and Enterprise together to kind of find out, how to get those vehicles into the city for our FY23 request. So the good part about this is not only will we be able to procure those vehicles, but also much earlier in the fiscal year as well. So we'll get that immediate replacement capability. Whereas if we were to order these, the potential is we might lose them to the manufacturer inability to create them, and it would be a much longer timeline as well. And that's just all because of the manufacturing chains that are still a big issue for those companies today. Next slide.
Any questions on fleet before we move on? Don't see the registrar here, but this is a carryover item from last year. No changes, just a request from Patricia to replace her voting machines by FY4 to keep up with the cyclical requirements laid out by the state. If you have any questions, please feel free to email us and we can get with Patricia. So I'm going to turn it over to schools. After school, we have transportation. When we're done with transportation, we're halfway through, so let me know if you'd want to take a break at that point. I recommend taking a 5 to 10 minute break at that point so we're fresh for all the other departments. All right.
Good evening, Mayor Rischel and members of the board. I'm Eric Neff, Deputy Superintendent for the School Division, and I'm pleased to share our capital improvement plan for the 2023 through 2027 years. This slide on the screen, you'll see the 5-year plan. One of the projects that is not listed on there that we had originally had in our FY22 plan is the outdoor air handler units at the middle school and the high school. Based on previous experience with replacement of the outdoor air units at Cougar Elementary School, it became evident that supply chain delays would not allow us to get that project completed during FY22, and will have to be pushed back to FY23. So that is not up there on the screen, but I want to make you aware of it. I believe Mr. Lyon, during his budget presentation, spoke to this. We do have, I believe it's $681,000 of ESSER funds committed to this project, and he mentioned the fact that he may need to come for additional carryover funds next year in order to support that project. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention, that wasn't up there. I'll take you through the projects individually. As you can see, a few of the projects do repeat over the 5-year period, in particular the purchase of buses that will be a part of the plan every year in order to stay on replacement schedules. The first project, the replacement of the individual classroom units at Cougar Elementary School. We were fortunate to speed this up last year because of the infusion of CARES funding. It's important to note that the original units operated on R22 refrigerant that is now very scarce and very expensive if you can find it. New units are not being operated obviously on the R22, but the R410A, which is a different type of gas, and certainly not as noisy as the R22 units. Also, you can see here these units used to sit out individually within the classrooms. Now they are being enclosed within a closet to kind of secure in place from the elementary students. Upgrade of the telecommunication system, that's actually begun a little bit this year in our budget. and will continue in 23 and 24. Upgrading the telecommunications system is a multi-year project. It began this year. The original phone system will be upgraded to the voice over internet protocol system throughout our schools. It is industry standard and will provide increased accessibility, portability, and scalability for operations. The resurfacing of the parking lots on the secondary campus, the bus loop included there. The elementary lots were resurfaced a couple years ago. The secondary lots are showing age and wear and tear. It is recommended a complete milling and resurfacing that occur in FY23. Patching has occurred throughout the years to these parking lots. And to my best knowledge, the last time that the complete resurfacing was completed was in 2006. Revision to the locker rooms, the men's team's locker rooms. Simply put, we're out of space. On the right, you can see the full lockers that are currently in the locker rooms. We want to replace them with a similar model that is located on the left there, which will provide half lockers for students to use, so provide more opportunities for students to have their own individual lockers as opposed to sharing them, team lockers, or in some cases PE lockers as well. This is the layout of Cougar Elementary School. The opportunity to provide fencing around the outer portion, the fence line, or the tree line there at Cougar Elementary School is a safety issue. Over the past few years, we've had more and more runners that will take off, and that leaves our staff at the elementary school chasing kids, so it provides a safety measure. It's certainly not the idea that we don't want the community using those playgrounds during the off hours, but more so a security measure for our students to keep them in. Did I skip over?
No, yeah.
The school buses, which I talked about earlier. Recommended replacement is anywhere from every 12 to 15 years. We have not replaced any of our buses over the past 2 years, although I will say that we do currently have 2 buses on order that we anticipate arriving in May. Currently, we have 4 buses that are over that 15-year cycle. So the recommendation is to replace 2 to 3 buses per year. This is a project that you've seen numerous times over the past few years, the reconfiguration of the high school entrance area. We do have architectural drawings for a potential cure to this. Currently, we have a greeter that is stationed right there at the top of the stairs. So we're sure that any visitors to the building are proceeded to the main office as opposed to being able to get up the stairwell into the 2nd or the 3rd floor.
It's the greeter, an adult or?
Yes, it's one of our instructional assistants, and that's her job during the day, is to be right there. Also, the doors operate on a card system, so any visitors have to be buzzed in. So she has access to that to buzz them in. The high school fitness center is another area that's used by students, not only by our athletes that are on competitive interscholastic teams, but also our PE classes on a regular basis. We did do minimal upgrades in 2017 to replace broken equipment, but this area is in need of a new facelift.
Hey, Eric,
Yes,
quick
sir.
question. Are you considering buying or leasing the equipment?
I haven't really spoken with our activities director regarding that.
Mhm.
I haven't done the research as to the expense with that. It was just an estimate that he provided for me, so I'm not sure exactly which direction he was going, but I can certainly inquire about that.
No, I was just wondering, that's all. Thanks.
Are there any grants, health grants that can be obtained for that?
We certainly can look at that.
Yeah.
I'm not aware of any, but we certainly can look for it.
I would think so with the level of obesity in society today and all the health problems, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
playground equipment at MPS is approaching the end of life. This project would remove and replace the current playground equipment, install safety surfacing and borders, and this is an area that's certainly not only used by our students, but used by the community on weekends and after hours. So this is a project that we're looking at for FY25.
Is that the original equipment?
No, this is a, so MPE opened in '06, so this is the second round.
Okay. Don't laugh. In my grade school, we had the original equipment.
The next two projects are projects that Mr. Palco talked about. It's a shared facility. We would love to recapture some of the space at our middle school. There you can see where our transportation does their training. You can see the bay doors to the shop down below that Mr. Simpson used. He currently operates out of the back of the 300 wing as well, which was an old automotive shop. So we would love to recapture that area. It would really fit in well with our school improvement plans to increase our CTE offerings to our students. At one time, we thought that increasing student numbers would that area would be needed or designated for classroom space, but we don't feel that's necessarily the case now. We could really improve our career technical options for our students moving forward by going into some type of agreement with the city with a shared facility. And that's Paul's maintenance shop there currently. And then outdoor lighting on our bus loops there is an example of what the LED lighting looks like at the high school. In their parking lot, it's made a significant difference, especially when students and guests are coming out of athletic events or fine arts events during the evenings. There's a safety measure there. We would like to do the same thing in our transportation lot, but that being said, if we go to a shared facility, this might be a project that we could put on hold and would not need to do. So, and that completes my presentation.
Okay. And now we can take our break.
I recommend after the transportation,
Oh,
unless
after
you guys want to
transport-
take,
okay,
yeah.
thank you.
That'll get us out.
Turning over to council to brief on transportation projects, and after this, I do recommend a 5-minute.
Great.
Evening again. The first transportation project slide is regarding the culvert replacement projects. We have, of course, the Russia Branch culverts that pass underneath Manassas Drive. We have the Manassas Drive at Public Works culvert. That's a smaller double barrel culvert. And then the Kirby Street culvert, which serves the road under Mosby 2, to Mosby 2, under Kirby Street. Russia Branch is, we're hoping to get word. We had originally been approved for revenue sharing, but then there, of course, was COVID, which set the state budget back, and our revenue sharing was moved to out years. But because we have switched from a replacement project to a relining project, VDOT is trying to work with us to advance revenue sharing funding to this year. We are still waiting for the state to approve their budget before VDOT Nova can make any commitments to us there, but we are hopeful to still have revenue sharing in place for that project. Kirby Street will actually be funded out of stormwater RUMS. We're not going to touch the roadway at all. We're hoping just to recondition the bottom of the culvert with concrete repair. So these costs are not all general fund costs. Hopefully there'll be a revenue sharing agreement on Russia Branch, and then we're using stormwater for Kirby Street. But altogether the cost is $2.7 million in FY23 and over $3 million over 5 years. Street resurfacing and maintenance. This is several yearly resurfacing projects lumped into one. We have street improvements and resealing, which is a capital line. We are fortunate enough to have gotten our Grand Tourist tax back. We were operating around $250,000 a year in street improvements and resealing dollars, but we have the Grand Tourist tax that we can add to it this year. So we're actually looking to spend $426,000 in FY '23. Additional streets projects, we have used this for both concrete projects and to supplement street improvements and resealing in the past. So I think because we delayed so much concrete work this year, we'll likely wind up using this additional streets project to address some more concrete in FY '23, but we have $94,000 in that project. And then there is the State of Good Repair Primary Extension grant that we got 2014, 2015-ish from VDOT to resurface that section of Manassas Drive that carries a primary extension. That's from Mathis to the city limits. And once again, we have completed that application, just shy of $1 million. We've applied for that would be a VDOT administered project where they would come in and resurface Manassas Drive from Mathis to the city limits. So a lot of good news in the very near future. Looks like we may do close to $1.5 million worth of paving in FY '23.
Calvin, do we have a schedule or for the resurfacing and maintenance?
We had hoped to.
Right.
We really have, so we contacted VDOT to ask them when Steve first started last summer. My goal was to have the electronic condition analysis that VDOT uses conducted, to couple that with our internal analysis, and then Steve has also been actively tracking any complaints that come in through any of our city portals. So the hope was that by this time, we would have already presented you with a revised pavement priority list. Unfortunately, the Fugro analysis that was conducted, we're still waiting on the data. We were supposed to have that data already, but they are doing VDOT's data first. So we're taking a second, we're playing that second fiddle to VDOT, waiting for Fugro to finish our data and get it to us. They told us today, early May. So once we get that data, we will be looking to give you guys a presentation on a revised priority based on that electronic pavement analysis, and on citizen complaints and internal staff analysis, windshield survey data. Because we know it's been some time since we did a full comprehensive pavement analysis of the entire city. But I would be really, really disappointed in our progress, but we spent all our pavement money early last year, so we actually have none left to spend in FY '22. So it looks like the timing's gonna work out, and we'll be able to execute some projects around August, September, and October, and get some real paving done early again.
If someone submits a complaint about a road or pavement that's not in our jurisdiction, for example, the crater right by Signal Hill Park, do you pass that along, or?
Yes, he's wonderful at staying in touch. We was on the phone today, numerous meetings with Manassas and Prince William. We keep in touch with Paulo over at Prince William, Chloe over at Manassas. We're always in touch because we're always seeking the same funding.
So if I can just add, for residents who want to do something like that, you can contact directly Steve on the streets departmental page, or just send a general inquiry that way, and then, yeah, Steve does a good job of sending stuff over to VDOT and to the county when it's outside our limits.
Okay, yeah, because sometimes people don't know that that's outside our limits.
Yeah, so always, that's the beauty of our new website. If you go to the department section and you go under Public Works, Streets, Sidewalks, and Right-of-Way, you'll see Steve's Transportation Program Manager contact, but you also have a inquiries, comments, like a section where they can fill out a form, and it'll go to Steve and Mark, and then they can pass it along.
Great, thanks.
Got a question before you go on. Where are those, those on the surface, the ridges, like before a stop sign, they have these little rumble strips, I think it's called. What's the possibility of incorporating that when you paved the new pavement up Manassas Drive, that stop sign right before the police station?
I don't know that, so I've seen the rumble strip machine that they use on interstates.
Yeah.
I've never seen one that you use. I think there's two different methods. The
Mhm.
rumble strips on the edge of the interstate, I believe that's a milling machine.
Right.
It's just a very narrow milling
The narrow
machine
one,
that
but-
only mills as it, it's kind of like a lumpy milling machine.
Right.
I have seen rumble strips that are, like you're saying, actual built-up pavement at intervals. But most of the rumble strips I've seen are actually milled out, so you can do them at any time.
Yeah.
I don't know what the history is with them on the driving surface. On the edge of the edge of the freeway, they seem to hold up good, but you are milling off your nice smooth top coat
Right.
to do it, so you're probably inviting a little bit of moisture if you use that method.
Yeah.
I think when it's in the driving surface is probably when people choose like elevated bumps in the pavement instead of milled out
Yeah.
bumps. But I can look into it.
Yeah, I mean, it just,
You want,
for like, I guess, people that don't drive that road or they don't know the stop sign's there, it gives them like a notice that there's a stop sign ahead, you know what I'm
this
saying?
is the stop sign before the police.
That four-way intersection, I forget what the street
The
that's.
Colburn, not Colburn, but Denver and Manassas Drive,
No, I think it's
or
called.
Barker, or
The
Baker?
one,
Yeah, the back way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
right behind the, you can like go like a slight left if you're driving up that way. There's a, yeah, Manassas Drive, and then there's a slight left, and then a four-way intersection. I mean, that stop sign, like, I mean.
There's on Manassas Drive on the west side, there are at least three four-ways? Baker and Manassas Drive, Colburn and Manassas Drive, and Denver and Manassas Drive. Did I get that right?
And presented freeway.
Three-way?
Yeah.
That's right, because there's not a fourth.
It's like, I think it's like right after the,
I,
oh.
I think we'd have to have a
Is this traffic?
criteria
This
for.
one right here?
Well, you also have to.
We should come up with criteria for these strips, rumble strips. Like if it's a safety issue, or if there's a number of
I mean, it just.
instances where you have people running the stop sign, we've got to have some type of rationale.
Well, I mean, the visibility for the stop sign is hard to.
Just as a reminder, in '23, we're doing the Manassas Drive safety study, so I think that's probably where
Yeah, that might
we
be a
can
good
hear
help
that
too, yeah.
recommendation. Yeah.
Because I mean, there's
Which stop
this
sign
one
was it?
stop
Did
sign
you
is
figure out
even.
which one it
I'm not
was?
sure which one.
Tree.
Yeah.
You're not sure which one?
Yeah, because there's only three on that section of Manassas Drive.
You're not talking about the stop sign that's right
That
right
too,
in
yeah.
front of the police station, are you?
No, not right in front of the police station.
No
Are
one's
you
going
talking
to
about
run
the one
that.
on Cabell? Like Cabell
I'll
and
find out the
Kirby?
street. I
Right
can
next to
email you.
Tortino Mare.
Right before that shopping center.
Right.
That's what you're talking about?
Yeah.
That's a three-way though.
No, there's a four-way intersection there.
You run that stop sign?
Almost there. Had the rumble strips, I'm saying. I mean, it's just a thought. I mean, people, there's reports of people running those stop signs.
Yeah.
There's people who are saying they don't have visibility of that stop sign. I mean, it just there's more option for people to know, hey, there's a stop sign coming ahead. Right?
How about a stop sign ahead sign?
Well, yeah. Well, those are on the side. You can't see it.
Even
Yeah.
the lights that you guys have on this side. Those
Might
will
be a
work
lot
too.
cheaper.
Yeah, and that's what I think I was going to bring that up.
So better than the
During
light
your
on the stop
community development one, the LED stop signs,
Oh, those
put that on that
outside
side too. But, yeah, just a thought.
I've got one more quick question. When you said that VDOT would handle it from Mathis Avenue to the city borders, that's all the city borders?
No. The only section of Manassas Drive that carries the primary extension assigned by VDOT is from Mathis to the western border.
Okay.
That's the only section of Manassas Drive that's actually carries the primary extension.
So a little bit past Baker?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, the program is for primary extensions only, so that's the only section that we can apply for. But it does, it does help us get about half of Manassas Drive
Right.
paved every 5 years.
Yeah,
We'll take it, right?
yes.
Any more questions?
No. For right now, no.
Okay,
Give me a
next
moment.
is a series of signage projects. We have the no parking sign installation. That was based on the idea that it is no longer really practical to paint curb on a regular basis. As you know, we do have some parking issues, which means that before we can paint, we have to move all the parked vehicles, and then we still have to be careful of the after spray, things like that. And paint does not hold up as well as signs, so the no parking sign installation project is meant to replace painted areas with signs. And then the no commercial vehicle sign installation project, we did have one respondent to our RFP. We're setting up a meeting with them. Looks like from their costs that they put in their quotation, it's a little out of reach, but we're going to talk to them and see what they can do to bring the price down. We only had one respondent to the RFP. So backup plan would be to actually have an engineer do the full design. We were doing this as sort of a design build, but have an engineer do a full design for all of the sign locations throughout the city, and then go out as an IFB simply for the number of signs prescribed in the plans. But we're going to see where we can get with negotiations. It's just a little bit more out of reach right now. And then the wayfinding and entrance signage, $200,000 in 23 and 24 for a total of $400,000. This would put monument signs at the entrances to the city and also at Park Central, correct, Laszlo?
Yeah.
So how about
Can you go back? Sorry, go ahead.
now how about like fire zone? You're not going to paint this the curb like yellow or fire hydrant?
Fire
Hydrants, yeah.
On the west end of town, they were all of the no parking areas were painted. Sort of had a combination of methods going on the east end of town. But on Carondelet, like West Carondelet, we've been using signs to delineate the fire zones, keep people, or fire hydrants, keep people from parking in front of them. It's painting in front of all the hydrants in the city is quite a bit. We used to hire part-time public works crew, and that was what they did all summer. You can, seniors, juniors in high school can run around in a pickup truck with cans of paint and paintbrushes. It's just become really difficult as the city's gotten bigger and more crowded. It becomes a multi-day operation where you have to put out no parking sign, temporary no parking signs, get people to move, and if they don't move, then we have to bother the police to come help us get vehicles out of the way just to do work. Put all that together, and it's not really as efficient as just putting out signage.
So these signs will be in basically all the fire hydrants, the fire lane, no parking fire lane ones?
No parking fire lane, generally no parking from here to corner to match the, is it 20 or 32 feet?
Usually 20.
Feet from, you can't park within 20 feet of the center line of the intersection.
Yeah.
Hey, Calvin, with respect to West Carondelet, what are our plans for those? We normally have those signs that are covered with bags. Are we going to finally allow for parking there, or?
Yeah, Steve and Calvin have been working on a proposal. We're almost there for how to finally unbag and replace a lot of the signs to correct where there should have been signs saying no parking, adding those, and then changing the parking to allow for overnight. But we're almost done with that analysis. But the plan is to allow for more parking than the pre-pandemic, but it won't be as much as during the pandemic, as we realize there are some areas that needed no parking, especially near the Christian school. For queuing.
Right.
We need to keep some of that, and also near fire hydrants, intersections, things like that. We need to add some additional no parking. So the analysis is almost done.
Do you have a time frame of that?
Well, the signage has to be installed too, right? So.
Yeah, well.
Or just when you have the analysis done, you'd think?
Should be soon, right?
Analysis?
Yeah, we're pretty much done.
It's 99% done. We're trying to figure out why currently it almost appears as though we're losing spaces.
Oh, no.
Again, Laszlo brought up the point, we're trying to avoid, you guys have probably seen when Manassas Christian School lets out, is in pickup mode. If there are cars parked anywhere between the entrance to the school and I guess the next one will be Lene Lane. But that whole area of cars are parked there, then the queue for the school pickup is literally occupying a travel lane.
Right.
And people will just blow around them in an unsafe manner and cause all sorts of problems. So probably a lot of what we're seeing is a few spaces lost is probably explainable by the fact that we're trying to keep people from parking, especially during school hours or school let-out hours in that area.
Okay, thank you.
And for this no parking sign installation, so a combination of that plus parking enforcement officer, we're seeing some improvements in compliance. First 4 months roughly of the new parking enforcement officer, we jumped up to about an average of 700 citations per month. Now I've seen over the last few months that dropped down about 350. So we're getting probably about 50% improvement in compliance, which was the goal. You know, less revenue, but that's the goal, is to improve compliance with parking. And we just got to keep getting the proper signage up and keep enforcement going.
Thank you.
Downtown transportation infrastructure, this is associated with Park Central development, more so than the village residential. These were the public roads and the areas in the public roads that weren't necessarily driven by the residential development itself, but are more or less to provide proper traffic flow and ease of access in our commercial district, our commercial downtown. Because of that, some of the costs have to be borne by the city. So we're anticipating $300,000 in '23, and then $300,000 in FY24 for a total of $600,000.
And that's just a placeholder. We're currently doing the consulting analysis for the downtown transportation improvements to cover this, to cover wayfinding signage, entrance signage, everything, and we hope to have more data. We're also included this as part of our RAISE grant application to make it a more compelling grant application as well. And if we fail this year, we're going to reapply next year, but we have confidence through Merchant McIntyre, who helped another jurisdiction win something very similar, that will, and with the expanded infrastructure funding, we hope to be able to get the RAISE grant so that it costs nothing to do this over the next few years. And actually, it'll be funded by the federal government.
Upgrading traffic signals. This VDOT now, the standard for VDOT is the yellow bordered backplates. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but they're going up all over the place. Not a solid black backplate or a solid yellow backplate behind the bulbs, but an actual yellow border that makes the signals more visible. This project started with changes in VDOT's specs like that, but we have recently discovered that all of our aging MMUs, we can no longer find replacement cards. So for our malfunction management units, cards are no longer available. We have bought everything we can find that's floating around in the marketplace. So in our detection cameras, we are now a mixture of the original Autoscope Encore 1, or the Autoscope 1 system, Autoscope Encore system that's about 7-8 years old, and now there's the Autoscope Vision, and we now have all three of them scattered throughout the city, which makes maintenance very difficult because the original Encore, or the original Autoscope system does not run on the same software. So you almost have to have two different laptops. So as we go through, we're changing out all this equipment to try to get everything on the Autoscope Vision system and get all new MMUs in these cabinets. Very important project because the MMU is what sends the signal into flash. And if we can't keep the MMUs working, the signals will just be in flash the whole time. So it's a very important project. Again, $31,000 in FY23, $167,000 over 5 years. Saltshed Bmp Replacement. This is a transportation project because we only need a salt shed because we do snow and ice removal on the roads. But because there is a salt shed, we have to have a stormwater BMP in place to capture the salt-laden runoff. Unfortunately, the structure has been leaking or taking on groundwater, which means that we have to pump it out more often, which gets expensive. And if it's letting water in, then it's probably letting salt-laden water out, so it's not really doing its job as it's supposed to. So this is a $100,000 project in FY23 to replace the underground stormwater BMP for the salt shed. Owens Drive, Owens has been problematic with
Oh.
resurfacing with asphalt. There are a lot of large trucks that stop at the intersection of Owens. When they come to a stop, they're pushing up the pavement. We have resurfaced Owens at Euclid several times. It's not holding up. Concrete intersections don't have that same buckling problem. It's a rather expensive solution, but should keep us from, you know, if you go out there and resurface Owens 3-4 times, you've paid for the cost of this project. So $500,000 in FY '24 to install a concrete intersection there.
Hey, Calvin?
Yep.
Did Councilmember Jeved's suggestion a while ago about rumble strips, would that work in this instance of, because I mean, I've seen the blistering too. We've all seen it on Euclid.
That's just purely a weight issue. You take
Okay.
all that weight in that truck and you try to stop it, and it literally, it's
But-
hard to believe. People don't believe that that can happen, but it buckles the pavement, it pushes
Mhm.
it forward.
That's physics. I mean, but would rumble strips help that, alleviate that from happening?
Only if it slowed the driver down before he hit his brakes. That would be the only reason.
And it'd have to be some large rumble sticks to fill it over like a big truck, I would imagine, right?
Okay.
There's
Sure.
just a lot of large vehicles down Owens. And they,
Okay.
you know, they probably 150 large vehicles a day stopping in that intersection, and the
Mhm.
ones that are heavily loaded are doing the most damage.
Mhm.
But it would not do that, you know, look at the size of the vehicles that stop at Route 28. That intersection was built in 93, 94. Still in fairly decent shape, so. Manassas Park Trails connectivity, this was a project that we started looking into a few years ago when the money became available through MWCOG, or MWCOG was asked to administer the money. We did not have anything put together at the time. Kind of very disappointing situation for Manassas Park, and Prince William County, because if we had had a consolidated trails plan between the three jurisdictions at the time, we probably could have gotten some capital trails money and done something substantial as a group, but because we had nothing outlined for Prince William and Manassas to follow, probably missed the boat with getting some new trails in the city. Now that we have Bloom's Park brought into the city, there's a lot of great opportunities to extend the length of Prince William County's trails into our city, and potentially even look into future expansion into Fairfax County. And this is to look at $60,000 in FY '23 to look at the possibilities, and then 1.06 million over 5 years to actually start implementing parts of the plan.
Does the WOD trail run anywhere near us?
No.
That big bike trail, I don't know if,
No, that takes you
That's-
from like, it takes you all the way out to the airport almost.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Dallas Airport?
yeah. Goes through Herndon.
Okay.
I know the most money that was available recently was the National Capital Trails money. They wanted to extend to a series of projects that were not concentrated around the existing footprint, but expand the National Capital Trails regionally. And there was a lot of money on the table. Transportation master plan, the city has really never taken a look at multimodal transportation and put together a transportation master plan to look at all modes of transportation and consolidate them into a both short-term and long-term plan for transportation improvements. $25,000 in FY '23 to start doing this master plan, $100,000 over 5 years. Manassas did this same exercise about 3 years ago, and they finished it up, I think, a year and a half ago, and it's a very nice addition to their arsenal. Anytime they want to apply for a grant, they have their ducks in a row, everything's prioritized, and can be even added to your comprehensive plan as an addendum things like that, so that you always have support for future projects that you've had in mind. Emergency preparedness projects, a city evacuation plan. We do not have a comprehensive city evacuation plan. What we would do if there was an accident at the track, say involving a chlorine spill or something like that, what we would do if there was a major fuel spill at a gas station, how would we evacuate residents safely without bringing them near the incident? We all know that down in Bloom's Crossing, you have options until you pass Carondelet, and then you really don't have any options after that to get around an incident. And then over on the other side, we know what happened when Mosby lost its culvert. We had residents that had no way to get out of their subdivision. This will look at all sorts of possibilities like that. And then the second stage of that is emergency connections. I'm sure that a city evacuation plan would trigger the need for additional emergency connections. So the city evacuation plan, 1.05 million, 24 to 25, and then the emergency connections, rough estimate, 3.5 million, putting that out to 27 to 29.
And a lot of these projects like that one, we're going to apply for federal grants.
Okay.
You can see that in the spreadsheet.
Got a quick question. Could you give me an example of an emergency connection?
So exactly what we did when we had to repair the culvert at Mosby, replace the culvert at Mosby.
And then we'll go through that. They went through the park.
We actually put that into our comprehensive plan as a potential emergency connection before the incident happened. Then the incident happened. Manassas did not want that in our comprehensive plan. They were pretty vocal about that. They say, we don't want you cutting through Stonewall Park, but when the emergency happened, they were good neighbors and they accommodated, and it allowed the citizens to get out. Also, Eric Neff was talking earlier about the original Cougar Elementary. There's already fire roads built there. They have the bollard system in place, removable bollards for fire apparatus access, potential to access Birmingham Drive. I think by the annexation agreement, we can't connect with a permanent road, but there's probably room for negotiation for an emergency access to Birmingham in case we had to evacuate citizens of Bloom's Crossing without using digital or signal help.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, go back. Oh, you skipped a couple.
Mathis Avenue extension to Old Centerville Road. This project would provide a way for those people that already take Mathis Avenue, but then divert to Scott Drive, speeding down a one-way residential street. This would provide a more direct access. Would probably increase the use of Mathis to OCR, but would also make the residents of Scott Drive pretty happy that they don't have to deal with that every morning. But this very expensive project, probably a lot of property acquisition, considering there's a shopping center right there. Nothing in FY23, but $500,000 for engineering over 5 years, preliminary engineering and design over 5 years. And a really substantial construction price tag because you have to look at the cost of acquisition, and we're probably looking at part of a shopping center, maybe a lot of portions of residential properties as well. So substantial price tag estimate right now, FY25 through FY29. Route 28 corridor improvements. This has been, we submitted a smart scale application for the Innovative Intersections project 2 years ago. We've already submitted the pre-application again this year, but this project would look at innovative intersections, pedestrian improvements along the corridor to try to increase safety and improve travel times. We still need a bypass, I think, is kind of the general consensus, but that leaves 28 itself untouched, which doesn't really serve the citizens of Manassas Park with the bypass in its current alignment. This project would improve travel up 28 north for Manassas Park residents who still have to use 28 because they're not going to drive all the way over to Godwin to use a bypass. Connor Drive Extension West, this project should be out to bid very shortly. Verizon has had some rain delays. They keep promising us they're gonna be clear of the right-of-way, so that we can advertise this project, but that is literally all we're waiting on. The RFP is completed, we're just waiting for Verizon. They found the cable they didn't know they had, and so the project's back on utility hold, but they keep telling us they're gonna be done any day.
I remember when the project was only $1 million.
Yeah.
It's a long time ago.
The project was $425,000. Yes. Project cost is now estimated at $2.7 million, but $2.3 in FY '22 to FY '23 for construction. Connor Drive Extension South, this again is another pretty big project. We do not have any way for fire EMS personnel to access the east side of the city in the event that the tracks become blocked. That is a huge problem. We've tolerated Norfolk Southern's crossing arm failures over the past 4 to 5 years. We know what that does. Literally backs up traffic. Your only option is to take Euclid to Liberia, and by the time you get turned around, you're waiting in a line of traffic on Euclid to get to Liberia. This project would propose a set grade separated crossing over top of the tracks, and then improving that with a circle at Railroad Drive. So it's eerily accurate how this circle would match what would be out there.
You're gonna put a circle on Railroad Drive?
No. So this is Manassas Drive. You're coming here, right? This is Manassas Drive as well. This is Railroad Drive to the Railroad Office Building, Railroad Drive to the county residential units, and then New Connor South. Because there's 5 ways to get in. Of course, this has to be designed, but this would be a way to kind of facilitate that. Another problem too is this light being red way too long when it doesn't have to be for people trying to get across Manassas Drive. This would also resolve that as well. But again, this is just very rough before we've done any planning or anything like that to resolve the issue of what happens when the tracks are blocked and there's no way to get across. That this is just initial thought, but this has to be planned, design, everything else. But we want to start looking at what the solution will be for this area.
That's at the bottom of the hill though, right? Is it at the bottom of Manassas Drive when you're the hill?
Yeah.
That's not safe to have a roundabout at the bottom of a hill, because they're
Yeah.
going fast.
Well, we'd
And
have
then
to
you have to
rely
go in
on
a circle.
engineers to look at
Don't you just bank the roundabout?
I mean, that's like, I guess you could have to make it fun to speed around, but that's,
That's gonna be on top of the railroad?
I don't know. about
No. That's the intersection right now. There's Railroad Drive.
Yeah.
What do you call that? North and south, I guess. North going to the Railroad Office Building,
Right
south
before-
going to the Elms Development, and then Manassas Drive. Right now, there's that 4-way intersection. If you extend Connor south, you're going to have a 5-way intersection.
So we're
That
talking about an overpass,
Or underpass.
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
and a roundabout.
Yeah, it could be
Correct.
separated.
Yeah.
The issue is that
Go ahead.
there's really no way, you've got a residential subdivision on each side.
Right.
So you're constantly going to have secondary road triggers to the signal, no matter how you set it up.
Right.
That's the whole driver behind the innovative intersections along Route 28. The real reason you stop so often on Route 28, unless there's a traffic accident, is that you're always getting secondary road triggers because you have residential folks entering the roadway from both sides.
Yeah.
So then your primary route has to sit and wait for the cycle length to finish or the phase length to finish so that they can once again start moving in the primary direction. Same thing with Manassas Drive here. You're always going to have triggers coming from the Elms, coming from Manassas Yards.
All,
Yeah.
like north, south, east, and west, you're
I
getting
see,
that.
I see.
You're always going to have secondary signal triggers coming from the side, and it's pretty frequent. I can't count the number of people that have told me the signals are failing because they keep going red and there's nobody there. Well, there was somebody there, but you didn't see them. They were gone, and the signal just happened to be red when you got there. So the secondary triggers is the entire driver behind the innovative intersections principle on Route 28 to expedite the primary direction by making the secondary direction kind of go the extra mile, if you will.
I mean, I know that the circles are becoming more and more prominent
They
in the
are.
area.
Yeah, go to Route 9 in Loudoun County.
Yeah.
They employ those very effectively to
Vienna.
improve.
I don't
Yeah,
think-
Vienna has one too.
yeah. They improve traffic flow tremendously on Route 9.
I don't think this is necessary. I mean, I look at like Route 50. I mean, they've got a bunch of stoplights too. I just don't think this is necessary for that location.
To be able to cross the railroad without being
The
inhibited by the rail
roundabout.
arms.
The roundabout.
Oh, the roundabout may not be necessary, but the goal of this project is to get another way to cross our city under or over the tracks.
Uh-huh.
But to do that now, you're creating a 5-way intersection. So if the engineer comes back and says, no, we can set up a system where you don't need a roundabout, that's fine.
Okay.
I've just seen them employed very effectively on Route 9 and other places. To Councilmember Hampton's point, they're becoming more prominent.
I've never seen one on the bottom of a hill, and I think there's a reason why. Because it's dangerous.
I think you have more visibility on the bottom if you're going down.
Yeah, but I just think it's dangerous.
Well,
that's why
the
they got
study
those
determine
engineers.
Yeah, the
that?
study would determine.
Yeah, they'll
that.
figure
Study
it.
is a part of every
Correct, it is.
transportation.
They'll figure it out.
Yeah, they'll figure it out. Yep.
That's
But the driver of this is the railroad crossing, not the roundabout.
Got it.
Does that make sense? We think that's we think that's going to be a beneficial from standpoint from traffic mobility because of the constant reds you get that Calvin was describing that frustrates residents when they're trying to get across there. We think this is going to improve flow like it did on Route 9. But that's the secondary part of it. The primary objective is how do we ensure traffic mobility, fire and police access across both halves of our city when the rail arms are stuck, which, police help people get across, but it's not a fun experience. It was just down 5 minutes again tonight when I was coming back here. Or even worse, a train derails or whatever. It's blocking now that, what do we do on Manassas Drive to get people across? And
Okay.
so it's a serious thing, and so we'd ask for support at least to evaluate what the
Okay,
solution
I'm
would
glad.
be.
Yeah. Okay, we'll see.
It'll work out, Preston. No, it will. No, because I'll tell you, there were people who pushed for reversible lanes on Route 28,
I remember
but
that.
that did not work out because it didn't prove to be safe.
That's true.
So-
Okay. Yeah, good
They
point.
did this in Gainesville. They put an overpass over that railroads just to
Yeah.
get on top of it.
That fixed traffic a lot.
Yeah. And there's a lot of accidents there too, and emergency vehicles go up there.
Yeah, I think it was, 15 and 29?
Yeah, there's a Lincoln
Yeah, if you're going to
Hall.
Haymarket.
And look at the property right now, the one right across the tracks, it's undeveloped.
Oh, yeah.
It's a very low elevation, so there's
No,
a
I-
chance where you may be able to do something like this there because of the change in elevation, to maybe go under as an option.
All right.
Again, that would require coordination, of course, with Norfolk Southern. This is incredibly complex project, but we thought it was worthwhile to at least begin evaluating and applying for grants there's no way we're going to be able to fund this.
But
we'd
the
be looking
Connor,
for-
the Connor Drive is gonna go connect Manassas Drive on the other end.
No, so on the other end, it would keep going where Connor Drive goes right now with
Yeah.
Phase 4, right? Connor
That's
Drive
what
is
I'm-
being
yeah,
brought-
right.
And then it'll go all the way to Route 28. So this is also another way.
Oh, yeah.
So besides just Manassas Drive now, you can now get
Connect
to
to
28 through Connor Drive. So someone now can make that decision. Do I want to go 28 south maybe, or
But it's
get
also
28
connects
if there's a roadblock up
Euclid
ahead?
too then.
Yeah, Euclid as well. You're absolutely right. So if you want to get to
So
Euclid. you can-
Euclid, 28, I mean, it's
Exactly.
multimodal, I mean, this is gonna be,
Correct. Hopefully it reduces some of the pressure on Bloom's Quarry.
Right.
Because right now in the morning, that's a big pain.
Yeah.
We have a lot of students walking across, from the center of our city, walking to the middle school and high school. And every morning, it's a nightmare for police to have to deal with and the school staff with cars trying to cut through Bloom's Quarry and not stopping for kids. So we're trying to alleviate pressure on that and hopefully give better options for people to access 28 faster.
If you want, I'll send you the Parsons-Brinkerhoff determination that Route 28 was not safe.
Oh, no, it's fine. I remember the reversible lanes and who pushed that.
Yeah.
It didn't work.
But my point is, something similar to that will be done for this.
They'll tell us that this is not safe and don't do it, or
Right.
it is safe.
Of
Yeah.
course they will,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Any last comments or questions for Calvin? Thank you, Calvin. Thanks, Rob. Okay, if everyone's agreeable, we'll take a 5-minute break.
that the city has to purchase that we cannot go to our vendors or our fleet. So it will cover the motor radios, the in-car cameras, and our mobile data terminals.
Can you speak a little louder?
It would cover our mobile data terminals, our computers, our Motorola radios, and our in-car cameras. And over the 5 years, we anticipate the fleet gets switched out, we're looking at about $638,000 over 5 years. But that's if we start swapping these cars out during those years. Mobile command center vehicle, this is something that we're hoping that in FY25 we can bring forward and purchase. This is a need, I think, for public safety and all city projects that we can use. This will allow us to operate during various emergency operations. We can also use this as a backup for our dispatch center when it goes down, because we've had 2 power failures. We also had a culvert that went on Mosby. This would have been a good asset to be able to utilize during at the scene, and also for fire, if they ever have a major scene that they don't have to be out there for a long period of time, we could deploy this unit.
Is there grant money available for something like that?
We've been looking around, and there's not seemed to be any lately, but keep on. That's why we kind of pushed it to FY25 to see if any grant opportunities will come forward. Our CAD system, which was originally purchased in 2005 prior to moving into our new building, has pretty much has the end of life cycle on it. We're finding that it's not compatible to the new technology and software we're implementing within the city. Like our Marcus Alert, E911 texting, stuff like that. We're having difficult times with the current CAD system and our records system. So we actually got an updated quote to upgrade this, which came in under about $62,000. It came in about $288,000. And the quote we did was to mirror our current one for our body cameras and car cameras that we have with Exxon, and they're going to ones that are going to have our record system too. And they gave it over 6 years at $48,000 a year. So it came in under. So that timeline will be from FY23 to FY29. Dispatch workstations, these were the original ones that were purchased when the building was built in 2007. We are experiencing some failures, like power failures, structural technology, patch panels, and IT has a difficult time working on these because they're not designed for them to troubleshoot easily, so they have to take a lot of the equipment out to troubleshoot it. These new ones that we're looking at, and I believe the county has the same setup, allows IT to be able to get to them, do repairs or upgrades easily, but we're not taking all the equipment out in order to do that. But we're starting to see where our dispatchers are in there for 12 hours and they need a good area to work, and if everything's cramped in an area, probably a little bit bigger than this.
So, Chief, with the 2 added on dispatchers, do we need more workspace?
No, sir, we have 3 workspaces.
You have already?
So for this project, to purchase the equipment will be about $73,000 we're looking at to replace. The E911 upgrades, this is something that's required every 2 to 3 years, and I believe last year we pushed it out to this year. I had the major look up with the company to see what it costs currently, and I was surprised to find out that it came in under the $350 that initially quoted to us. It came in at about $243,000, which is about $107,000 under. So there's 2 options here. We can do a one-time payment, or we can do annual installment payments over 5 years, about under $55,000. And we're anticipating hopefully in FY23-24 to be able to do this.
And my apologies, I didn't update this slide, but in the spreadsheet, it has that annual $55,000 payment structure just to ease pressure on the CIP.
With the $55,000, are you getting interest incurred for doing it yearly, or is it just?
That I'll have to find out.
Yeah, but the good thing that the total amount is, it was $75,000 less than what we originally thought. So even if we're paying interest, we're still saving money. Yeah.
It's probably the only thing that's actually coming under. Everything else is going up.
The The next piece of equipment, this was brought to my attention by my staff. As we know, we've been seeing a lot of resistance and people trying to flee arrest and running and having our office looking for any suspects that either take off or lost child or lost person. And one of the things that they brought forward was this night vision optics that they can see at night. It would allow them to see in wooded areas, in backyards, if they're walking looking for some suspect or you're looking for a lost child. If they are looking for an armed subject or somebody who appears to be armed, they don't have to get up close, limit the use of force that they would need to get this individual out. So for 10 units of this, to be able to put them on all the squads and allow them to be deployed when needed, it's about $150,000.
I was about to say, I mean, this will help in the parks, the trails. I think we have, what, like 3, 4 lost
Yes, those were
individuals?
difficult in their time, and if we would have something like this.
It would have helped them identify, yeah.
And the last one, this is an armored vehicle. Initially, we submitted, or not initially, but we used to have an armored vehicle here that was a military surplus. It really didn't fit for the city in terms of deployment and how we were using it. So we ended up returning it back to the Virginia State Police. So the one that we're looking at now has a public safety aspect, not only for PD, for fire, but allows us to, you know, any barricade, active shooter, high risk warrants or anything, you know, regional disaster incidents. I mean, or if the fire department has a structure where potentially somebody could be armed, we are able to deploy with them and provide them cover as they're trying to put the fire out. And the cost for this is about $375,000. We're actively looking for grant opportunities on this, but it doesn't seem like the government is providing opportunities like this. Or regional.
Is it just an armored vehicle, or is it like
Armored vehicle, but it's also used as a rescue vehicle.
so not like a water cannon or anything like that?
Yes.
Oh, it has one too?
So it'll have like onboard oxygen tank, storage of medical supplies, along with firefighting tools like a fog nozzle or a water nozzle.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you.
All right, good evening again. So the first slide is part 2 of what I presented earlier tonight for FY22 CIP. This would be the second part of that. This would actually put mobile radios into the apparatus. We talked about earlier tonight was portable radios. The mobiles are the ones that are actually fixed in the truck that we can't take out. So we need to upgrade those and add some more of those. On your slide, where it says 4 portable radios assigned to chief officers, you can scratch that out. That was inadvertently put in there by my CIP manager in the audience. I started a while ago. So that's what this first slide would be. That would be in FY23. So the next slide would be for the fire department upfit for all the vehicles that are technically, Chris talked about earlier, they're in the enterprise fleet plan. Which is a bit of all the radios, the lights, and all the good stuff there. So separate from the enterprise, we have 2 vehicles we broke out. We call special services vehicles. We're going to keep them separate from enterprise simply because they don't collect the mileage like the other vehicles in the city do. As you see, the pickup truck's 1994. It only has about 14,000 miles on it. The UTV, we got in a grant from UASC back in 2012. We're going to try to handle that, but add another one in the future. And now we have 2 green spaces, large green spaces now with the 2 parks. So we need some sort of off-road vehicles to be able to access any type of emergencies down the woods. So one's planned for, I think it's FY24 and FY23. So the fire department EMS equipment, this is all about keeping all the life cycles going, keeping everything moving forward with our cycles. So we bought a first cycle back with CARES Act a couple years ago. That was where we got the biggest piece of the money started. So now we're just trying to keep that moving forward in the CIP over the next few years. So that means the Lucas device, which would be in FY '25, the thermal limited cameras also back in '25, the ventilators will be '26, and the video laryngoscopes will be '26 as well. The cardiac monitors, we're currently, next year will be the last payment on the first cycle of stuff that we have. We started back in FY '19 with that, and wraps up in FY '23. In FY '24, we're going to jump into the next replacement cycle of those, which will take us into '27. We put in the CIP. We're depending on where the money's, how the money looks in the city. We may be buying them outright. The boss was telling us, so we'll just keep them there until the money's right. In CIP. There's also grants out there through the Virginia Office of EMS. We always try to apply for those. They're 50-50 match grants. So with these machines being pretty expensive, you know, probably won't get one because they're like $50,000 would be in the match. The fire chief vehicle is the last vehicle that we bought prior to Enterprise starting up. This vehicle was actually scheduled for FY '19 to '23, but it got pushed back to '20 to '24 because when it came into the dealership, it was stolen off the lot, wrecked, so we had to push it back a year. So that's why we're in the fitness field at 24 now instead of 23. At the end of 24, this vehicle would be rolled into the fleet enterprise with Enterprise.
So, what's the difference between that vehicle and the fire marshal vehicle?
They're the same.
Okay, so,
Well, fire marshal vehicle is going to carry a lot more specialized equipment for dealing with carcinogens, for fire scene investigations and all that.
Yeah.
That's why we made it a pickup truck this time, to keep all the carcinogens on the outside of the truck. It's not in the cab with him.
so that vehicle, you're planning to use it for?
It would be just for the fire chief,
Oh,
like for
okay,
admin.
admin stuff, like permits and stuff like that?
Yeah. Meetings, lots of.
Yeah.
Okay.
But would they have lights?
Yes, sir.
And stuff? Okay.
For emergency response.
Yeah.
So our ambulance replacement is also through the CIP. We say we're trying to do this every 5 to 8 years. Because of funding and historical funding, we have not been able to do 5 to 10 years. So if you look at it, we just replaced the 2008 last year, back in FY '21. So we had a 2013 that's coming up. If we do that every 5 to 8 years, that would mean we're buying another one immediately. So then, in 5 to 8 years later, we're replacing both again together. So we decided if we're getting a brand new one now, we will try to do the best we can with the older one, and space them out a little farther so that we can actually get use out of both of them. So that, like I said, we have one on order. We actually put the order in FY '21, should be in November of this year. And then we'll have the next one come in order on FY '26 through FY '30. And again, so we've talked about last week, because it's anywhere from 18 to 24 months on delivery now. So with the fire truck replacements, we have one scheduled to come up in FY '23. That will be replacing the 2008 truck we have. Again, we try to do this anywhere between 12 to 15 years, kind of like what Mr. Neff said about the school buses. Knowing that there's a 2-year wait on these, we'll probably try to push near the 12-year mark instead of the 15-year mark. So right now, the projected cost $845 for next year, for next fiscal year, which is July. We do know that our vendors already told us there's a price increase coming in May, just next month, for $10,000. They projected possibly another increase in July, in August. That's to be seen. Don't know what the price increase would be. And then in FY '30, which is farther out, we're going to replace the 2017 as well. And that, you look at that one now, it's going to be about $920,000. So big ticket items. The good thing about these fire trucks is the one you see removed is a ladder truck. We had that scheduled for FY '24. Thanks to the governing body, we actually bought the used ladder truck. So instead of $1.5 million, we spent $294,000, and they come out of ARPA. So
Hey, Chief, can we try to sell the ones that
I mean, the,
Yes, sir.
yeah.
Any,
could make some
any
money.
ambulances or fire trucks, we always try to sell them outright.
Right.
And then if we don't get them sold outright, we'll put them onto the auction site.
Thanks.
We think selling them outright would bring more money into the city.
Mhm.
So then the next agenda item would be fire department personal protective equipment. So this is the firefighting gear the firefighters wear for any type of hazmat or structure fire or anything like that. There's a 10-year limit on this equipment. Our goal is we try to do this in 5-year increments to allow each of our personnel to have 2 sets of PPE at all times. So if they get one set contaminated during the day for an incident, they come back, put it in the gear extractor, clean it up, let it dry properly, put their second set on, and you're still properly protected within the specs of time. So it's $96,000 for now, which is for FY13 will wrap up our, well, take that back, FY23 of $19,169 will be the FY23 payment, and there'll be one more payment for that in FY24, and then we start the cycle again in FY25. Sorry about that. So the self-contained breathing apparatus is the air tanks for firefighters. That also has a 10-year lifespan on them under the NFPA guidelines. We last purchased them in 2015. There'll be the next purchase will come up in FY25, and we're projected about $280,000 right now. So fire department radios, this is to replace everything that we have in our system, as far as mobiles, portables, everything, because everything's getting really old. By the time we reach FY27 for this purchase, we've been told by Precinct County a lot of the technology they're currently going to, our radios can't handle, so we'll have to do something to upgrade our fleet. So the projected cost now is $529,500. We do right now have a current FEMA AFG grant in that we submitted in February this year for this one. So hopefully if we get this, this will come out of CFP. So the fire department building renovation slide, we talked about that again last week at the budget. This is just an initiative we put in for FY31 as we see how the city develops over the next 5 to 10 years. Are we going to put $10 million into the current fire station, stay put with one station, or by that time is it time to split and go east and west? So this is just for information to let you know what we're thinking about. So an ARPA slide, you want to do this one?
Oh, you can take it.
So an ARPA slide is more just for equipment upgrades. Again, more EMS equipment to keep everything going. Cardiac monitors, 2 for $140. The Lucas devices, 2 for $35,000. Thermal imagers will be 2 for $19,000. And probably one of the more important ones is the West Nile alerting system for $140,000. The West Nile alerting system is what alerts the fire department of incoming calls. If you've ever been there, you see the lights in the ceiling, all that good stuff flashing. So we're on the very first generation of WestNet. When our building was built, we actually had the first WestNet system entered into fire station in Northern Virginia. Since then, there's been multiple upgrades and all that good stuff. A lot of good stuff's went in for fire department, mental health and safety with how they alert them and triggers heart attacks with alerting beeps and stuff like that. So we're looking forward to getting that system updated. Prince William County's telling us that their current configuration of stuff is vastly, pretty much making our system obsolete. So that's something we have to look at in the very near future. And then also some more equipment. The radio upgrades we talked about. The gear washer, that's what we talked about. I said the gear extractor, when firefighters come back to put their firefighting gear into basically a large washing machine, but it's called a gear extractor. It extracts all the chemicals and the carcinogens out. And that way it tries to help slow down the cancer rate that we seem to face a lot. So, and the project cost for all that would be $738,266 in FY23 and 24. And I'm going to yield the rest of the time to Mr. Gill. You have a question?
Thank you, Chief.
Thank
Good evening, Mayor, members of the governing body. So I'll be presenting the FY23 CIP budget for the Department of Parks and Recreation this evening. So first two projects. So first two projects are the tennis court and basketball court resurface, Signage Park. These come in at $134,000 and $85,000 respectively. These are both proposed for FY25. So in both cases, the asphalt surface is inundated with cracks, fractures. Playing condition is poor to where it's really competitive play is kind of not really possible any longer. In both cases, we would just go in and mill up the existing asphalt, put down new pavement, and in the case of the tennis court, we would also put up fencing surrounding the court and paint the new lines, set new poles. For the basketball court, we would put down new official court lines as well. And again, the biggest thing here is just to make it to where competitive play is possible again.
This doesn't include the the polk park, right? The servicing for the basketball, the park.
This one does not, but I have another slide that does.
I got a quick question. Are there any grants through USTA, United States Tennis Association, I think it's called?
We can look some more. I know in the past we've had a lot of challenges with Parks and Rec grants where there was a lot of, if we could find them, there was a large matching percentage. Usually the department or the city received the much smaller portion of the match. But I'm not aware of in the past come across any, but we can certainly continue to look, for sure.
Because if it's supposed to be competitive, and why not?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Let's go get some money from somebody else and,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Hey, Jay, do people use the tennis court?
They do.
There's a lot of
We
people?
have, I wouldn't say it's highly utilized, but we do have kind of our regulars. And then what we've had is, we've also added pickleball lines. So we do get a lot of use from pickleball players on the tennis court, because you can kind of have both kind of exist at the same time and provide options for both groups.
Pickleball right now is the fastest growing sport in the United States.
Yeah, it's super popular for sure.
I gotta look this up. I don't even know what pickleball is.
Yeah,
It's all the
It's
rage.
fun.
yeah, it's a growing sport.
Jason's like a pro now, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. So next we have the banquet hall AV equipment video conferencing add-on. This comes in at $61,000 and is projected for FY24. So this would be to supplement the FY22 AV upgrade project, where we're adding new projectors, new projector screens, new control panels. This would basically complement that by kind of giving us a little more functionality, and hopefully attracting some of our business rentals or renters, so that we can kind of provide this additional functionality and be more attractive moving forward. We have had some renters in the past ask about this, so this is something that we wanted to kind of try to integrate into that previous AV project. Next is a special event equipment project. So this is an FY24 through 32 timeline. So every year during that time frame, $15,000 a year for a total of $135. So the department, once the city's new downtown comes online, the department certainly wants to have a kind of a consistent, regular presence from a special event standpoint in the downtown. So this kind of allows us the resources to try to ensure that we're able to provide those events. You know, many would be small scale recurrent events, but then also some large scale events like festivals and things of that nature. So allows us to procure those items, you know, light decorations, inflatables, you know, tables, chairs, sound equipment, things of that nature.
So we'll be purchasing them and then we'll be using them for the festival, and we're going to storage them in some facility and then we're going to maintain them and all that?
Yep, absolutely, yeah, and it would be something we try to use for other events as well, you know, not necessarily solely the downtown, but that would be the primary focus.
And the goal would be that when these events become profitable, then we can go, this would not be funded by taxpayer money, it would be funded by
Right.
the events revenue, and then hopefully we even generate a surplus above that to go back to the city as well.
You could also rent them, right? Like you can add them as an amenity if people want to use like the bounce house.
Oh, to rent out.
So, like, yeah.
It's a neat idea, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, so we have the banquet hall floor replacement. This is at the community center. This comes in at $40,000, proposed for FY '23. So the existing floor you see there, which is marmoleum, which is a type of linoleum, that's over 12 years old. So we're starting to see pretty significant hazing, discoloration. We've got cracks and tears in certain sections. That probably space gets some of the highest, if not the highest, foot traffic in the building, especially over the last couple of years with rentals increasing pretty substantially. So the goal here is to, you know, kind of protect this investment, continue to market the banquet hall, which is our most popular and most lucrative rental space, and go ahead and get that replaced so we can continue to attract customers to rent that space. We're looking at a couple of different flooring options, but right now we're leaning toward probably a polished concrete that gives the best kind of long-term, you know, kind of, or the most longevity, but also the least maintenance. So we're probably going to go in that direction, most likely. Next up, we've got two projects, the Manassas Park Community Center and the Signal Bay Water Park furniture refresh. These come in at $60,000 and $50,000 for 2024. Basically here, you know, the community center's 12 plus years old. The furniture is the same. So most of this is banquet hall furniture for the community center, the 6-foot round tables as well as banquet upholstered chairs. And then the 6-foot by 2 rectangular tables, those are used in the banquet hall as well as the classrooms. So these are all, you know, pieces that get regular, consistent usage. They've actually held up incredibly well for the kind of the wear and tear. I mean, you figure after every event, tearing them down, you know, putting them on the table carts, taking them up. But, you know, we've kind of got to that point, you can see the picture on the left, where, you know, it's just becoming a little bit, you know, not the greatest when we're trying to rent these out to, you know, to customers. And then for the water park, again, the furniture's very old, past its useful lifespan. We're looking here to replace 100 Chase Lounge chairs, 50 dining chairs, and 20 picnic tables. Next two projects are the retaining wall demo rebuild and the basketball court resurface, both in Costello. I think this is a sign, I should hurry up.
They keep kicking us out for some reason. PowerPoint.
So while he's doing that, Jay, when was the last time that we tackled the outside basketball court?
In Costello?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, to be honest. It was well before my time here. As far as the wall, I talked to one of our employees who's lived in the city, I think, 50, 51 years. He said the wall's always been there as long as he's been alive. So I don't know about the court, but I know the walls.
I know the court has been there since I can recall, and I've been here since birth. The wall has changed. I know that much, because it used to be, I think, concrete and not this brick. But you've been here for at least 10 years, right?
Yes.
So it's been, well, it's got to be more than a decade.
Okay.
I would say it's probably since we last touched it. Okay, thank you.
Sure, sure. So, yeah, so the wall, as you can see in the picture, there's a pretty rough shape. You know, you've got bits of stone and mortar that are kind of coming dislodged and falling out into the sidewalk and the street. And then for the basketball court, you've got large fractures and cracks, discoloration on the official court lines, the fence is damaged. So what this project basically includes is tearing down the existing stone wall, rebuilding a segmental retaining wall, and then resurfacing, milling up, and then resurfacing the basketball court, adding new court lines, and adding a new 10-foot black vinyl coated chain link fence. These projects do need to happen in concert, just given the nature of each. They kind of go hand in hand. However, the contractor did indicate that they would want to do the basketball court resurface work first. Next is the Wellness Center strength equipment purchase. This comes in at $124,000, scheduled for FY24. So this is kind of the second piece of the two-part Wellness Center refresh. In FY20, we did the cardiovascular line. So this is the opposite. This is the strength line. So this would include the dumbbells, all the plates, the functional trainer, the hammer strength equipment, all the selectorized machines. Basically everything non-cardio based would be replaced in this. So next is the Casella Park LED lighting replacement. This is a two-part project, both scheduled for 24. So the first part is to address the outdoor bollards. We would remove and cap the outdoor bollards, and in place of those we would add LED fixtures to the existing rear parking lot holes and the rear admin parking lot. And then we would also add 2 additional units to the community center itself on either side of the building to provide adequate light on both of those sides. And then in addition, the second part of the project, we're looking at the $50,000 to address a transition of the indoor fixtures to all LED. We're hoping to possibly use some FY22 ARPA funds to start that this year in a couple months to do either the pool or basketball, the gymnasium. Those are both large areas, high cost areas, and we're hoping that $50,000 could kind of address the remainder of the building after that. So next we have the perimeter caulk and white coat replacement projects, both the Signal Bay Water Park, 24 and 29 for the perimeter caulk replacement, and then 24 for the white coat. So again, here I know this one's been in for a while. I know I've gone over this one before, but basically we're just looking to remove and replace the caulk line around both the activity pool and the lazy river. The key here is just that we don't allow water to seep into the joints and cause structural damage. And then for the white coat, you see the picture there. That's when it was last done in 2015. I think this is industry standard. They like you to do this about every 8 to 10 years, so we're on schedule here. And again, the key here is just to not let water penetrate the surface and get behind the joints and looking at potential heat damage. Next, we have the indoor pool deck recoat and heater replacement at the community center. These come in at $36,000 and $48,000 respectively for FY23 and 25. That's the original deck from when the building opened in 2010. It's never been touched before, so we're just looking to go in, repair and grind down any loose texture, epoxy, and then recoat with this material to ensure that no one slips or falls. And then for the heaters, we're looking at 3 new heaters. 2 are allocated or dedicated to the indoor pool, 1 to the hot tub. It's important to keep kind of the proper a balance, 2-degree balance between the water and air temperature to kind of mitigate condensation and water loss. So we that's the key for the indoor pool. And then for the hot tub, we kind of lose the functionality of the hot tub if we can't heat it. So it's not quite as desirable for patrons if it's more of a lukewarm tub. So that's why we want to get those heaters replaced from that. Next, we have the outpost spray cannon and safety matting replacement. These are all activity features at Signal Bay Water Park. These come in at $375,000, $40,000, and $25,000. All scheduled or proposed for FY25. So the majority of the activity features are over 26 years old at the water park. We've really kind of done the best we can to try to repair and modify and augment through the years, but we've kind of gotten to the point where replacement's kind of necessary. In the case of the water cannons, those are situations where the design is such where it's very conducive to bees' nest. They kind of find the right crevices to make the nest. We're constantly trying to spray and keep them from stinging people. One of the pipes that goes to one of the cannons has been compromised. We have to dig up the actual deck surface there to actually get to that, so that one we don't even run. That one's kind of inoperable. So 3 of the 4 are working. And then the safety matting you can see on the left there, those get repainted and sealed every year, but unfortunately, again, like I said, we've just really kind of, I think, gone as far as we can with the existing equipment here. So we're replacing the outpost itself, 4 of the cannons, and 11 of the safety mats in total. I know Mr. Palco spoke about this a little bit in the beginning, but this is the Signal Bay Water Park bathhouse, pump room, and pool office demo rebuild. Comes in at $1.2 million for FY25. This project basically entails demoing the structure and then rebuilding in the current footprint. This would allow us to kind of better maximize and utilize office space for guard staff. We could upgrade the pump room to include new piping and filter tanks. And then it also would allow us to ensure that the bathrooms are ADA accessible and meet those standards, while also allowing us to meet health code requirements with the county by having everyone enter through the bathhouse, which it currently does not allow. Vehicle replacement for Airbus comes in at $68K. This is for FY26. This is our only ADA accessible vehicle in our fleet, 12 passenger. Primarily we use this for senior transportation programs and activities, although we have used it in the past for other demographics, quite a bit for teens, also in summer camps or school age in the past. And we used it quite a bit for pandemic-related initiatives as well over the last few years. Next is our zero-turn mower replacement. This comes in at $14,000 in 24 and 28 and 25. So this is kind of a staggered procurement cycle. We're looking to do 1 mower in 24 and then 2 in 25. Our Parks Division maintains about just under 80 aggregate acres of mobile space. Our mowing season starts in early April and goes through mid to late October. So it's just critical that we have operable machines. We really rely on these zero turns to do the bulk of our cutting throughout the season. Next, we have the Blooms Park Trail. I believe Mr. Palco mentioned this one as well. This comes in at $1 million, scheduled for FY26. This is just a kind of a traditional mill and resurface project. I do want to point out the 3.5 total miles. That is an accurate. That should be now 4.25, given the recent trail modifications we made this winter. We added some additional. The good thing is the project cost does include that additional trail mileage. Just the total there doesn't represent what the actual total is. But again, the big thing here, I think the increased cost is just due to the location. Mobilizing crews and getting the materials back will be very difficult, and that's why the cost is significantly higher there. Next, we have the library establishment project. This comes in at $425,000 for FY23. So this was a 2-part project as well. Current fiscal year 22 had $400 allocated. Nothing really changes here in terms of the categories. The furniture, fixtures, and equipment, the open-ended collection, design and technology categories, everything's the same. It's just a matter of how the money's broken down. And again, this is just in preparation of transition from the old to the new library.
I like the logo too.
Oh yeah, they did a good job with that. I like that a lot. And then lastly, these are 2 ARPA-specific projects. So the playground upgrade is Signal Hill Park. This one also includes the Polk Park basketball court resurface you asked about. Those come in at $160, and then the outdoor movie screen package for $100. Timeline's FY23. So the Signal Hill Park Playground, that project's been in the CIP for quite some time. That playground gets quite a bit of usage and patronage, and 25, 26 plus years old. So what this will involve is basically removing and replacing the structure, safety surfacing and borders with like-for-like equipment. It'll be a combination of 2 to 5 and 5 to 12-year-old structures. We'll have the swings again, and then we'll have some ancillary pieces as well. We are cutting the footprint down just a little bit to kind of save on maintenance costs because there's a little bit of a wasted space. But all in all, it's about 5,000 square feet. So not a huge difference. And then at Polk Park, we're actually replacing the existing 2 to 5-year-old playground structure, like for like, just a more modernized unit. And then we're also doing a mill and resurface on the basketball court, also replacing the basketball hoops and then repainting the lines. And then lastly, the outdoor movie screen package. This is just a kind of a collective partnership with Cinema Cafe to where we can provide outdoor movie options for the community by fixing a large screen to the side of their facility.
Questions or comments? Thank you very much, Jay.
Do you all need another break before we move into the last section here? Or are we good to go?
I think we're good.
Okay, all right, we got about 20 more projects.
One feels the need.
20 more?
Okay, let's keep rolling.
Okay, let's keep going.
Again, first we'll get into the community development general fund projects. Start off with fleet. These are the public works vehicles that cannot be covered under the enterprise agreement, either because of size or special outfitting. Again, this, as Lonzo spoke to earlier, some of these vehicles are completely dedicated to the different enterprise funds. But as such, it's not a direct split. $249,000 from the general fund, $510,000 from the water and sewer enterprise fund, and then $150,000 from the stormwater enterprise fund. Totaled $908,000 over 5 years. These vehicles include 2 large dump trucks, a dedicated flusher for the water sewer flusher, and then a small dump truck and a street sweeper to replace the current model. Public works equipment. This is all of the equipment that specialized equipment that we use in the field. The reason for the $62,000 in the stormwater fund is because one of the first purchases here is for a chipper to address the tree growth around the stormwater management areas and the stormwater ponds. It's a total of $467,000 over 5 years. Again, there's that 12-inch chipper. That's completely stormwater enterprise fund. Then a mini excavator, a replacement rubber tire loader, our replacement light towers for night work, total air compressor, skid steer track machine, which is also a replacement, and then correlator data logger replacement of our leak detection listening equipment. Miscellaneous projects, property demolition. This again to cover cost of demolition when a house is declared unfit or unsafe for human habitation. The owner does not comply with an order for demolition. This allows us to fund the demolition costs ourselves and then place a lien on the property to recover those costs. Connor Center rehab plan. We have aging infrastructure in the Connor Center all around, stormwater infrastructure, as you know, a lot of failing corrugated pipe. We have water and sewer issues, sewer issues especially. A lot of the Connor Center is on private lift stations. We have a lot of long evenings and nights, long days trying to deal with owners whose lift stations have failed. A lot of them don't tend to understand the urgency of addressing a sewage spill. So this becomes very problematic. This master rehab plan would put together a long-term plan for replacing and improving infrastructure in the Connor Center and allow us to schedule the work in an order that would not waste money if we just go in and start resurfacing streets where we need water and sewer improvements, stormwater improvements. We're of course throwing money away, so we need to make sure that we have a comprehensive utility transportation infrastructure replacement plan for the entire industrial district. These are the ARPA projects funded in the ARPA budget. Smart meters. This is an AMI remote meter reading system. Total estimated cost that our working estimate now is $2.6 million. We're currently in discussions with the vendor about a rider contract for this project. But all of our meters throughout the city have started to reach the end of their useful life. They start reading in the favor of the customers, usually these mutating disk meters. But we're starting to lose radios, transmitters. We have had a substantial number of meter replacements over the past 2 years, so this project couldn't come at a better time. Costs are substantially increasing in replacing old meters. Stormwater, the Russia branch, TMDL projects and BMPs. Stream restoration is by far the best bang for your buck when it comes to TMDL reduction. We do have several streams that we're currently looking at, both tributaries to Flat Branch. Still potential to do Russia branch stream restoration, but we're exploring best cost options, and as Laszlo alluded to earlier, we're hoping that we can find some sort of creative partnership here that spreads our costs out. But total project cost, $500,000 from 22 to 25. Railroad Drive culverts and the Manassas Drive culvert. As you know, the culvert under Manassas Drive failed. We had to come up with a solution. That project was funded with ARPA, and then we're still looking at the 2 sets of culverts that run under Railroad Drive. Again, it did a very comprehensive raise grant application. I believe the final application was nearly 400 pages, 400 pages long with a 30-page narrative. So we're very hopeful that we'll receive funding through the RAISE program, but we do have this ARPA funding in place so that we can act on these culverts swiftly. Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund projects. This RUM item, repairs, replacements, upgrades, and maintenance. We have substantial pumps, generators, control panels at our pump stations and lift stations. All of these things, when they fail, are major costs, not to mention the fact that we could at any time experience a water break on like a 20-inch water main that would probably be beyond what Public Works could venture to repair on our own, so we would need immediate contractor assistance. Having this line item allows us to address those major, sometimes surprise capital costs, but then use money unspent to address long-term initiatives such as I&I improvement. The gravel easement roads, this is a project that we first thought would be much easier than it was, but unfortunately a lot of these easement areas are pretty steep, have cross slopes as well. We need to look into potentially doing some retainage, soil retainage and things before we go in and install these roads. So we're now looking at a approximate project cost of $600,000. We've moved this project out to FY26 so that we have time for design and further contemplation before beginning to install the gravel roads. The phased water system improvements. Phase 6 has been designed for some time, but we've put off the construction to allow the water sewer enterprise fund to be able to afford it. So FY '23 will see the construction of Phase 6. We can go into a map. Phase 6 again is Martin, Yost, Lambert, sort of a circular loop there. Phase 7 contemplates this section of Manassas Drive from the city, from Kent to the city limits. And then Phase 8 contemplates this section of Manassas Drive from Courtney down to, I guess that would be the intersection of Cabell. The SCADA system replacement, we had a SCADA system installed some years ago. It was a very complicated situation. Wound up in litigation for some time because the radio communication as installed did not work. The city actually wound up settling that litigation by installing our own radio communication system that did work. Unfortunately, the company that installed our SCADA system went out of business, and the actual software on the server and the Linux server and then the Microsoft interface to that were proprietary. So we have not been able to get anyone from the company to help us in restoring functionality to our existing SCADA system. So we're anticipating a cost of $1 million and a timeline of FY '25, but we are also working with a vendor currently through the AMI who believes we may be able to implement certain aspects of our SCADA through the AMI project itself. So this will keep you posted as we get updates from them. Stormwater Enterprise Fund projects. Again, there is a runs item in this enterprise fund as well to cover major repairs, replacement, upgrades, and maintenance. $1.27 billion over 5 years, but $395,000 in FY '23. Connor Center maintenance projects, as we discussed, this is primarily linked to the fact that most of the Connor Center was built with corrugated stormwater pipe, and I'm sure you guys are sick of hearing about deteriorated corrugated metal pipe, but that's just a sad fact of life. It is a very affordable material. Unfortunately, it's not a very durable material. So all of the corrugated metal that was installed in the city is in a pretty severe level of deterioration at this point. This project cost is $103,000 in FY '23, $539,000 over 5 years. We've already executed 2 major projects under this program. TMDL reduction projects, again, we have an obligation through our MS4 permit to meet our TMDL reduction requirements. We have sort of been blessed with the use of UOSA credits to buy us some time to accrue more money to execute these projects. Connor Center Pond 1 was delayed by the village and Park Central construction. It really made no sense to proceed with the project. Just to have a subdivision constructed on top of it, which would probably cause further sedimentation and need for reconstruction. The Russia Branch stream restoration. Again, we are exploring both Russia Branch and the Flat Branch tributaries for potential stream restoration. But Russia Branch was our primary focus of research to this point. And then other TMDL projects. Connor Center Pond 1 and any stream restoration that we do will likely knock out 2, maybe 1 or 2 completely of our required reductions. We can probably get rid of suspended solids. We can probably meet that reduction requirement. We can probably get rid of our phosphorus obligations with stream restoration, but there's going to be some nitrogen reduction left on the table, so we'll have to have money in place to do other TMDL projects to meet the nitrogen obligation, or perhaps some additional suspended solids. But stream restoration is pretty good at clearing suspended solids. So this is one of those things when we get final design of the stream restoration, we'll know what else we need to do. to meet the final obligation. This is no cost in '23, but unfortunately, the reason we're negotiating or trying to discuss this potential for public-private partnership or something like that is that we are looking at approximately $21.5 million in projects over 5 years. BMP pond evaluation, again, one of the mandates of our MS4 permit that's upcoming is that we have all of our ponds surveyed and mapped out. And it has to state their intended design condition and their current condition so that we are well aware of what we need to do to restore them. Unfortunately, a lot of the ponds that the city owns, we do not even have the original design documentation for, or if we do have it, it simply lacks the calculations that are required. So this project will evaluate all of our ponds and show us what we need to do to recondition them, to restore them to their original design condition. So $50,000 in FY23 for engineering, survey and analysis. Any questions?
Yeah, I got a question, Calvin. Did we buy the LV800, the remote tractor?
Oh, the green climber?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Is that similar to the chipper?
No, the green climber is almost like a track machine, bush hog. It's controlled remotely. Very nice piece of equipment. So Donald Jenkins, who goes by Bud, is currently really heading the stormwater division as Wayne Martin cross-trains with the superintendent, is sort of taking over public works operations as superintendent. But I've had numerous conversations with Donald about the green climber and the ability for a single staff member to go out and tackle what used to take a crew of 7 to 8 guys to do.
Right.
It's a fantastic piece of equipment. So far, so good, holding up very well, but also the safety component is something I think people overlook. Very dangerous to send guys into stormwater ponds with steep embankments. There are always still a level of moisture in the bottom, lots of snakes. So it's just to have a remote machine that can be operated from the top of an embankment, something that a single individual can take out on a trailer and you don't have to obligate an entire crew. One person with the green climber can do the work of 7 to 8 people, and it's pretty impressive. Those machines have really caught on. We're definitely not the only jurisdiction that's purchased one, and it probably won't be the last one we purchase because it is a true time saver.
Great, thanks.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you very much, Calvin.
That concludes our CIP presentation. Is there any other questions on the CIP or the budget?
I'd like to request that we get I don't know if anybody else wants this, but I'd like to personally request a copy of the CIP bound exactly like this.
You're talking about this
And,
presentation?
I beg your pardon?
This presentation?
Yes, this
Okay.
presentation. And will the numbers be corrected? Throughout the presentation, there were minor corrections.
No, it was corrected on the spreadsheet, so it just needs to be corrected on there. So we'll
Okay.
go back and update
Okay.
that.
And
The spreadsheet's right.
Yeah, and when it's printed out, be sure that no words are lost. About 25% of the verbiage was cut off when this was printed. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. It's pretty substantial.
See?
All right, I just read what was.
Oh, this is the tonight's presentation?
Yes, yes.
Okay, all right, yeah, okay.
Yeah, okay.
I thought you had the budget book. The budget book is fun, right?
No, the budget book's fine.
Okay,
Yeah,
got it. Okay,
yeah.
all right.
No, I'm talking about this, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
I do, but it has to do with budgets. Laszlo, I've gotten 2 complaints this week from 2 different citizens about cars parked in the yard again. I'm just letting you know, because I got it last Tuesday and then again over the weekend. And when I drove by through yesterday, I did notice, so when I was from my house going to Loman Extended, there was quite a few. And I think there was the same ones that the people complained that I provided last week. So I'm just letting you know that because I'm hearing about it again. So
If you can just email us the address.
I'll just go back at the email and resend it. I have a general idea where it's at. I don't know the exact address, so I can give you the general location.
So how many people need CIPs and binders? One,
The
two?
presentation.
The presentation. Just two?
I'm good with this.
Okay. Just two.
I have something else, but not budget related.
I beg your pardon?
I said I have something else, but not budget related.
Okay, anything else budget related? No? Okay.
Okay, yeah, just a good announcement. Our public health coordinator did coordinate a vaccination event at the Park Place Senior Apartments.
Mhm.
We had a good turnout, so we got a lot of boosters in, a lot of happy residents there, and hopefully that will help out if we get another wave here. So it's a very good event. He partnered with Giant Pharmacy.
All right.
Head over there to do it.
Nice. Okay.
And that's it.
Super. Is that it? Anything else for the good of the city? No? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Thanks.